A great sorcerer drops some casual doomsday news, telling a massive, stunned crowd that in 5 years the world is toast. He claims his future sight is flawless, which naturally sends everyone into a panic. But luckily for them, he's already found 7 saviors to handle it. A trio of them steps into the light, looking every bit the part, and the press absolutely eats it up, cameras flashing everywhere. This lineup includes the world's strongest man, a supposed genius, and even the youngest S-rank sorcerer to ever exist. Basically an all-star team assembled specifically for the apocalypse. With a roster like that, the crowd goes from terrified to hyped in seconds. And just like that, the world's fate rested on these 7 heroes. Watching all this unfold is a quiet kid with some serious eyes, whose own story begins right as the world's is supposed to end. Fast forward 5 years, and it's officially doomsday in Tokyo, which has apparently turned into a citywide party with live news coverage. Meanwhile, our boy is sweeping trash in a janitor's outfit, living the dream. This is Ikuta Koki, and he's not exactly feeling the festive apocalypse vibe. He looks up at a broadcast and recognizes one of the saviors, Miki Ne-san, who's shown on screen single-handedly wrecking monsters with flashy magic. Turns out, he once dreamed of being her subordinate, a nationally certified sorcerer. Back in the day, Kuki was a total bookworm, but everyone just saw him as a magicless tryhard. Only Miki Ne-san ever gave him the time of day, telling him to ignore the haters. She gave him that classic, sparkly-eyed encouragement about never giving up on his dream, which is exactly what our boy is clinging to now, 5 years later on a lonely rooftop. At that exact moment, a book he found starts glowing with some serious magical energy. But his big moment gets interrupted by a couple of sorcerer jerks calling him trash. They flex their own powers, warning the janitor not to even think about touching the artifact. And just like that, Kuki's hope shatters, remembering that magic only awakens in kids. He's left completely dejected, wondering why he was born with absolutely no power. Suddenly, a massive flash of light rips across the sky, grabbing everyone's attention. This doomsday broadcast kicks in, announcing that dimensional holes are opening up everywhere. Just as prophesied, all sorts of grotesque monsters begin pouring into the city. A terrifying skeletal demon even makes an appearance, looking like the final boss himself. But right on cue, the news announces the 7 saviors have finally arrived. This whole all-star team descends from the heavens, ready for their big debut. Down below, the crowd is absolutely losing their minds with excitement, cheering them on. One of the younger heroes smirks, promising to wrap this whole invasion up quickly. An older, wiser-looking savior declares it's time to show these monsters humanity's power. And this guy, number 2, immediately charges straight into the enemy lines, instantly blasting a flying creature out of the sky with a massive burst of light. This crowd goes absolutely wild, thinking number 2's flashy attack just won the war. But it turns out all he did was annoy a giant, monstrous crab from another dimension. As the smoke clears, people realize the saviors have vanished from the broadcast, because one of them is already dead, slumped over in a back alley. This is particularly awkward for his fan club, who are still cheering him on, right up until they get a fresh coat of paint from the citywide massacre. And that's the face of someone realizing their favorite hero just got turned into a statistic. All over town, the all-star team is getting systematically taken apart piece by piece. Even the smirking rookie is kneeling over a fallen comrade, his confidence completely shattered. This remaining heroes are in total shock watching their perfect prophecy go up in flames. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were guaranteed to win. But the view from the ground tells a very, very different story. Kuki can only watch as humanity's best defenders get absolutely annihilated. 2 of the last saviors decide to bail, telling each other it's time to retreat. But a new angelic monster descends from the sky to cut off their escape. This guy grimly tells his partner she's been promoted to number 4, which is not a good sign, before they're both engulfed in a massive beam of holy light. Kuki stares in disbelief as the last of the heroes are wiped out, but the guy's final scream is directed at Miki Ne-san, calling her a traitor. And in the chaos, Kuki finds her bleeding out, begging her to hang on. Miki Ne-san weakly tells him to run, but a horrifying bird thing with a human face looms over them. Kuki plants himself in front of her, ready to take on a monster with his bare hands. And even now, Miki can't help but admire his completely reckless bravery. He's absolutely losing it, screaming at the sky about why he was born so powerless, and with a claw about to crush him, he begs for the magic to save her. His desperation hits its peak as he literally demands power from the universe itself. And right on cue, a magical sigil flares to life in the palm of his hand. This sudden burst of energy is enough to stop the monster dead in its tracks, leaving Miki Ne-san completely stunned by what she's seeing. Kuki is just as shocked, staring at his hand like he's never seen it before. Miki's voice echoes in his mind, revealing this was her last-ditch plan for him, giving him one final classic speech about how he can save the world if he just keeps trying. He feels an incredible surge of strength, and the monster is suddenly frozen solid. A flashback reveals Miki stole that glowing book from the archives just for him, before her body dissolves into a pillar of light, seemingly flowing into Kuki. We jump to 1 year later, and the great sorcerer is on every screen announcing humanity is on its last legs. Kuki, now in a school uniform, watches the broadcast with hardened eyes. This city is still standing, but the mood is grim as the doomsday clock ticks down, and our boy gets knocked to the ground in a busy street, looking totally lost. He glances at his phone, which confirms the date. A full year has passed since the invasion began. It hits him like a truck. He's been sent back 5 years to the very beginning. He overhears some students nearby gossiping about the doomsday prophecy, still treating it like a rumor. But nobody's worried, since the 7 saviors are basically a guaranteed win. Right. This city screens light up with the saviors' faces, and the crowd immediately starts fangirling. We get the official lineup, starting with number 1, the so-called strongest man in humanity. followed by number 2, a magnate who apparently rules the world from the shadows. Number 3 is the queen of the underworld, which sounds less like a hero and more like a problem. Then there's number 4, a jacked old dude with supposedly infinite magic power. And number 5 is the ultimate brain who knows everything, complete with the classic glasses push. Number 6 is the youngest magical genius in history, looking appropriately unimpressed. While number 7 is the popular pretty boy who's got it all: looks, money, and skills. This kids nearby are totally buying the hype, convinced this is the real deal, and they're already celebrating like the world has been saved by this celebrity dream team. But Kuki can only stare, wondering how everyone could forget what's about to happen. He remembers the sheer terror of that day, the screaming and the bloodshed. His dark trip down memory lane gets cut short by a call from his mom, who frantically tells him that Mikine-san just collapsed out of nowhere. A quick shot of the local medical center tells us exactly where he's headed, and Kuki slams through the hospital doors, screaming for his big sister. He finds his mom standing over a hospital bed, her expression grim. Mikine-san is lying in the hospital bed, completely unresponsive, and his mom says the doctors are stumped. This is a huge red flag for Kuki, because this definitely didn't happen in the original timeline. His mind immediately jumps to that glowing book she used, connecting the dots instantly. Knowing exactly what he's looking for, our boy heads straight back to his old school. In the familiar school library, he recalls a specific book that might explain everything. He quickly finds the exact volume he was thinking of, pulling it from the shelf. And there it is, regression magic, a forbidden art that sends someone back with their memories intact. This price for this little miracle, of course, is that the caster falls into an eternal sleep. So that's it. She used the forbidden magic on him, but the book offers zero clues on how to save her. His grim realization is interrupted by two classmates loudly wishing they could join the saviors. One of them is fantasizing about becoming the strongest sorcerer, mostly for the female attention. His buddy corrects him. If it's girls he wants, number 7 is the real superstar with over 10 million followers. These saviors are more like pop idols, with their faces and numbers on merchandise everywhere. Kuki just glares at his phone, the saviors branding a constant bitter reminder. He knows that in this timeline, everyone blindly believes the great sorcerer's prophecy. This awful truth, however, is that the saviors couldn't do a single thing to stop the invasion. A cold dread sets in. If he doesn't do something, the exact same future will repeat itself. To make her sacrifice mean something, he realizes he's the one who has to change it all. Just as he's stealing his resolve, a voice cuts through the silence, spotting him. And of course it's Awashita, calling him a magic otaku whose only friends are books. Awashita snatches the book right out of his hands, mocking him for reading about magic again. And he keeps on taunting Kuki for having zero power, because that's just classic bully behavior. Since Kuki is such a fan, they decide to give him a little live demonstration. As Iwashita's buddy, Kusano, powers up his own magic crest with a seriously punchable grin, Kuki instantly recognizes the glowing hand as a skill activation, bracing for the usual beatdown, which apparently involves forcing people to the ground and making them apologize for being alive. But when Kusano aims his power at Kuki, our boy doesn't even flinch. He just stares back, completely unfazed by the whole pathetic display. Kusano is completely baffled. His skill should have flattened Kuki in a second, and he starts screaming that a powerless nobody shouldn't even be able to stand. Seeing his friend fail, Iwashita steps up, summoning his own thorny vine attack instead. His vines whip out, but Kuki dodges them with impossible speed, leaving them both stunned. Turns out there's a fun little rule. Magic from someone with overwhelmingly lower power just doesn't work. Plus, a nice side effect of having a ton of magic is that your physical stats get a major boost too. It all clicks for Kuki. This is the power Mikine-san transferred to him through her regression magic. And right on cue, a white crest flares to life on his own hand, just like she said it would. This bullies freak out for a second before deciding his new power is gross and attacking anyway, while Kuki is just trying to figure out what this new skill of his actually does. They've never seen a white mark before, so they just assume it's a weak one-off fluke. And that's when the system announces his new titles, Gravity Manipulation and Thorn User. This world around Kuki suddenly glitches into a digital corridor, leaving him completely bewildered. And a disembodied voice welcomes him to the library, introducing itself as the librarian. This librarian turns out to be a calm, silver-haired guide who explains this is all his new skill, leaving Kuki to wonder if this entire dimension is a power he just unlocked. He looks around and notices the library is a bit understocked, with only 2 books on the shelf, which immediately float down to him, one with a green cover and the other red. His guide explains that in this space, any skills he acquires manifest as readable books. And as Kuki holds the 2 tomes, the glowing patterns look suspiciously familiar. It clicks. They're the exact same crests from the bullies who were just attacking him. This librarian confirms he's just yoinked both of their skills right out from under them, which means if he reads these, he can use their powers for himself. Better yet, his guide adds that this is his mental world, so time outside is completely frozen. He's got all the time in the world to study up before the beatdown continues. While back in reality, Iwashita and Kusano are stuck mid-lunge like a pair of angry statues. This librarian snidely remarks that kids these days hate reading, so this might be a challenge. But Kuki isn't listening, immediately placing his hand on the first book, ready to absorb it. His guide seems genuinely surprised by his enthusiasm, which is a nice change of pace, because for a bookworm like Kuki, a time-stopped library where reading equals power is basically heaven. He's already imagining a future where this place is full of books, making him unstoppable, while the librarian tries to mention a catch about skill limits, but our boy is too busy having a power fantasy to care. He practically absorbs the book in one go, looking way too satisfied with himself. And when the librarian asks if he's done, Kuki confirms he's downloaded all the data, his eyes glowing as he reveals he knows every single detail about their skills. Back in reality, time resumes, with Kuki standing there like nothing ever happened, while his attackers are completely losing it, demanding to know what he is. Our boy is just amazed that the time stop actually worked, flexing his new power, and his crest now displays the 2 skills he just yoinked, glowing brightly on his hand. With a single step forward, he decides to give them a little demonstration, and both bullies are immediately lifted off the ground by an invisible force. Kuki coldly admits he was always envious of the powers they had, but he also thought they were complete idiots for only using gravity to push people down. As a counter-proposal, he reverses the effect and launches them straight into the sky. Iwashita gets a fantastic view of the ground rushing away from him, and the sheer terror of it all makes him wet his pants mid-flight. Now for the other skill. Kuki's hand starts glowing with a green aura, and just as the two start falling, thorny vines erupt from the ground to catch them. They're left dangling upside down, still trying to act tough from their new humiliating position. Kuki, however, is having the time of his life, declaring their power is officially his now. He shouts the skill's name, causing the vines to squeeze them even tighter. And to add a final poetic insult, a single white flower blooms on the vine. Kuki looks down on the pathetic duo, declaring their skills were officially wasted on them. With his first victory secured, a cold resolve settles in his eyes, and he looks at his glowing hand, thanking Miki-Nason for this second chance. He vows to stop the future those so-called saviors were completely useless to prevent, and with that same power, he swears he's going to save his sister too. His moment of reflection is cut short by a hand on his shoulder, and a smirking pretty boy asks just who he was calling a fake savior. Kuki freezes. It's number 7 himself, Arakawa Ryo, in the actual flesh. Arakawa claims he felt some hero magic and asks if Kuki is one of his haters, then pulls out his phone to reveal he's live streaming this entire confrontation. He generously offers to forgive the slander if Kuki just apologizes on camera. But Kuki doubles down, stating flatly that he meant every single word. A memory flashes through his mind of the chaos and the bloodshed, and how these heroes only made things worse for everyone. Arakawa's celebrity smile cracks, clearly not used to this kind of defiance. Fueled by the past, Kuki screams that Arakawa is no savior at all, which is apparently the one thing you don't say to the world's biggest idol. But then Kuki's eyes go wide, a sudden realization hitting him. Arakawa's own eyes start to glow, calling Kuki pathetic for even trying to pick a fight with him. Kuki just stands there, completely unintimidated by the celebrity death stare. Arakawa scoffs, telling Kuki he's not the one who's going to save the world, and Kuki just screams right back that Arakawa is the real fraud here. This idol's hand flares with a golden light, clearly getting ready to attack, and he's genuinely shocked that some random kid would dare challenge him. He calls the entire situation pathetic, completely underestimating our boy. But Kuki recognizes that overwhelming aura as the savior's signature magic. Arakawa prepares to unleash his attack, but then something interrupts them, because a couple of fangirls spot him and completely lose their minds. They can't believe the real number 7 is at their school, hoping for an autograph. This completely ruins the mood for Arakawa, who finds his own fans annoying. So he just tells Kuki he's lucky this time and promises to deal with him later. Then he flips the celebrity switch, all smiles for the girls asking for autographs. Kuki's left shaken, realizing that Arakawa's power was the real deal and he would have lost. Just as he's processing that, he senses another magical attack coming his way. A wild fireball comes flying right at his head, completely out of nowhere. Turns out, it's a pink-haired girl waving from the school building, calling his name. And she apologizes for overthrowing her training projectile, asking if he's okay. This is Kanai Momo, an elite student from the advanced class and a future certified sorcerer. These certified sorcerers are basically government-approved elites who handle monster-slaying missions, and the exam to become one has a passing rate of less than 1%. Sometime later, Kuki is walking through the now-empty school halls, when Kanai catches up, impressed that he handled the bullies all by himself. She's sharp too, pointing out that he was completely powerless just a little while ago, and Kuki just plays it cool, confirming he finally awakened a skill of his own. She's just glad those jerks got what was coming to them, which he finds kinda endearing. He remembers she was one of the only people who was ever nice to him, so he decides to test her, asking what she thinks about the 7 saviors. Unfortunately, she's a massive fangirl who dreams of being just like them, which means telling her they're frauds is completely off the table for now. She then gets a brilliant idea. He should get his new power level officially measured. Kuki's ears perk up at the mention of a magic power measurement, and she proudly shows him the high-tech training room for the advanced class. Apparently, this machine lets you fight virtual monsters while calculating your stats, which gets Kuki thinking. If he becomes a certified sorcerer, he'll gain credibility. He wonders if people would finally listen to his warnings if he had the rank to back it up. So he suddenly bows to Kanai, begging for a favor, which completely freaks her out. Just then, a teacher busts in, telling them this area is for advanced students only. Without missing a beat, Kuki declares he wants to be admitted to the advanced class. This teacher just scoffs, remembering this is the kid who scored dead last on the last exam. But Kuki isn't backing down, adding that he's taking the sorcerer exam in 1 month. Kanai immediately backs him up, saying she wants to measure her power too, which gets the teacher to cave. He reluctantly agrees to let them use the magic power measurement machine just this once. They're instantly transported into a virtual forest, which Kanai explains is a perfect replica of a monster den. She asks the teacher what level the monster is, and he confirms he set it to a basic E rank. A tiny little bird monster appears, and she explains that fighting it will calculate their stats. Kanai decides to go first, confidently summoning a fireball to show off her skills. She launches her attack, expecting to completely vaporize the little E-rank creature in one hit. Except the bird just gets a little singed, looking more annoyed than anything else, because it suddenly transforms into a massive, terrifying A-rank monster called a P-burn. She frantically asks the teacher for confirmation, who's panicking because he set the difficulty way too high. But instead of being scared, Kanai gets ridiculously excited, realizing this is her chance to become A-rank. This monster isn't impressed, launching a volley of fireballs meant for actual certified sorcerers, not students. This thing is completely out of her league, and it looks down on her with pure contempt. It immediately closes in, swatting her aside with a single devastating swipe of its talons. She screams for the teacher to hit the emergency exit, realizing this is way too dangerous. But the safety device is conveniently not working, and the monster isn't letting them escape. Kanai is left injured and bleeding on the ground, completely out of options. As the monster looms over them for the final blow, Kuki steps in front to protect her. This beast dives straight down, aiming to finish them both off in one swift attack. Kanai can only watch in horror, knowing there's absolutely no way to avoid it. But instead of dodging, Kuki uses his new gravity skill to shove Kanai out of the way, and he lands right in front of her, asking if she's okay while his crest glows. This monster immediately circles back for another attack, leaving Kanai in a total panic. But Kuki just calmly states they have to fight it, which she thinks is completely insane. Suddenly, his mind is pulled back into that strange digital space, where the librarian appears for a conveniently timed lecture on advanced tactics. He explains that skills from books can be used at the same time, calling it addition of magic, a technique that doubles the power output for double the mana cost, a pretty solid deal. Back in reality, Kanai is still trying to talk him down, saying gravity alone isn't enough. Kuki just holds up his hand, revealing he's got more than one trick up his sleeve now. Her expression is a perfect mix of shock and utter confusion. He activates his second skill, summoning a massive thorny vine from the ground, then uses his gravity power to float in the air, making himself the perfect bait. This Pyburn looks down, completely underestimating the kid it's about to attack, and it dives straight toward him with its talons out, ready for the kill. But Kuki is just waiting patiently, ready to spring his trap. With a flick of his wrist, the thorny vine shoots forward with incredible speed, wrapping itself tightly around the monster's leg and stopping its dive cold. This A-rank beast is left screeching in rage, completely immobilized mid-air. With the monster temporarily handled, they make a run for it, Kuki admitting he's more tired than he thought. Kanai is absolutely floored, realizing he just one-shot an A-rank with 2 skills at once. Kuki, on the other hand, looks completely gassed from that one combo, clearly running on fumes. And just then, the real culprit peeks in a smug blonde kid from the advanced class. Turns out he hacked the machine for revenge after Kuki beat up his bully friends. His jaw hits the floor when he sees them return, completely baffled that Kuki survived. Back in the real world, the teacher scrambles over, asking if they're somehow still alive. He can't wrap his head around the fact that the school's dead last just one-shot the thing. This results screen pops up, showing Kanai's decent score and Kuki's, which is just an error. This teacher has never seen a measurement error before, let alone after a supposed one-hit kill. Kuki immediately puts the pieces together, calling out the blonde kid hiding by the door. Kanai is absolutely livid, grabbing the saboteur by the collar and screaming that he almost killed them. He tries to play dumb, but Kuki points out his hacking skill could easily fix the machine. With his crest glowing, Kuki reaches out, ready to pull off another impossible trick. Forced into a corner, the kid puts his hands on the machine to demonstrate his power. And just like that, Kuki's eye glows. He's just copied the electronic hack skill for himself. Back in his mental library, he smirks, realizing this new skill is going to be incredibly useful. This teacher has had enough, grabbing the little saboteur and dragging him off to the staff room. Seko keeps pleading innocent, but the teacher warns him he's toast if they find any proof. With the drama over, the teacher gives Kuki one last suspicious look before leaving them alone. Kuki just plays it all off with an awkward laugh, like he didn't just break the entire power system. With just 30 days left until the certified sorcerer exam, Kuki is now in the advanced class, where the teacher awkwardly introduces him as the new transfer student, telling everyone to play nice. Kuki gives a polite bow, but the whole room is already whispering about the school's dead last. Immediately, a girl raises her hand with a question for the new kid, who's his favorite seventh savior. She gushes about how they're the hope of all humanity, the ultimate role models for any aspiring sorcerer. Kuki's expression just hardens, clearly not a fan of where this conversation is going. When asked which one he admires, his answer is blunt and immediate. He doesn't have one. Then the girl drops a bombshell, declaring that if they leave everything to the saviors, the world is doomed. She argues that everyone, especially the talented students in this very room, needs to get stronger themselves. If they all step up, maybe they can actually prevent the apocalypse. A speech that leaves Kanai completely stunned. Fired up, Kuki joins in, vowing he'll become stronger than anyone and save the world in 5 years. Naturally, someone's already recording this, captioning it, "A crazy person joined the class, lol." This video instantly starts making the rounds, with his classmates getting a good laugh out of it, and it's getting tagged with things like 7th Savior Love and other sarcastic comments. This post absolutely blows up with likes and shares, turning him into a school-wide meme overnight. People are sarcastically cheering him on, calling him the next big hero they're all counting on. All around him, students are glued to their phones, laughing at his ridiculous declaration. It's not just the school, either. The video is spreading to the general public on trains, and soon it feels like everyone in the entire city is watching Kookie's little speech. But amidst all the mockery, one old man watches the video with a very serious expression. Turns out that old man is one of the 7th Saviors, and he looks incredibly intense. Meanwhile, a well-dressed man on the phone is reporting on Kookie's viral performance. He's reporting on the girl's speech, how she claimed the saviors can't save the world, and argued that everyone needs to stop relying on them and get stronger themselves. A speech that left even the ever-optimistic Kanai completely speechless, by the way. This report continues, detailing how Kookie then jumped in with his own grand declaration. Their teacher, completely flustered, just tried to change the subject to the upcoming exams. But it was too late. The whole class was already giving Kookie the silent treatment. Outside, the teacher is still trying to process how this kid was powerless just days ago. He's on the phone now, reporting that Kookie has immeasurable power and some radical ideas. Specifically, he's spouting delusions that the saviors aren't going to save anyone. This guy, apparently a big deal, just tells him to write a recommendation for the exam. He hangs up the phone, then turns to someone else in the room asking for their take, and that someone is Sagai Tetsu, the #1 ranked 7th savior himself. His response is a completely dismissive scoff, claiming he couldn't care less what some random kid believes and just walks out. But as he leaves, the armrest of his chair is left completely encased in ice. This other man, #2 Jumon Seijiro, just smirks that he's cold as ever. Back with Kookie, he's already regretting his big dramatic declaration. He's sitting alone on a bench, realizing he just alienated the entire class. His big speech has made him a total outcast, with students whispering about the crazy guy everywhere. He gets it though. Before he traveled back in time, he used to admire the saviors too. Just as he's lost in thought, a fireball zips right past his head, nearly taking it off. He looks up completely startled to see who's responsible for the friendly fire, and it's the girl from class who cheekily introduces herself as Momo. She plops down next to him, calling him interesting for his sudden power-up and controversial opinions. Turns out his speech just confirmed what she already believed, that they can't rely on anyone but themselves. But then she throws him a curveball, casually wondering if the apocalypse is even a real thing. Kookie's response is dead serious and immediate. It absolutely is, which completely shocks her. He explains that he has to become a trusted mage first, because nobody would believe his warnings now. Hearing his conviction, Momo gets a determined look in her eyes, and declares that their first step is simple. They just have to pass that exam. Kookie cracks a smile, agreeing to the plan as she offers to buy him ramen to celebrate. Later, Kookie makes his way to a massive medical center in the city, where he stands by the bedside of a girl with dark hair who's lying unconscious. He tells her he's taking the exam, because with only 4 years left, he's running out of time. She doesn't stir, and he knows that if he fails this year, his entire plan to save the world fails too. He clenches his fist, steeling his resolve because this is his one and only shot. And somewhere in the shadows, a dark presence with glowing red eyes seems to watch over everything, a harbinger of the brutal future that Kookie is so desperately trying to prevent. Kookie steals his resolve, knowing this is his only chance to change the future. 1 month later, it's exam day at the Ministry of Magic's Grand Auditorium. As he walks through the hall, he can already feel the stares from other students, who instantly recognize him as the cringy guy from that viral video, a total laughingstock. Just then, a hand lands on his shoulder, and it's his new friend Momo, who tells him to relax and just do his best, offering some much-needed support. Kookie cracks a genuine smile, ready to take on the challenge with his one and only ally. With his confidence restored, he heads into the exam room, ready to do this. This first stage is a written exam, and the entire room is dead silent with tension, with even Momo struggling with the questions, clearly feeling the pressure. Kookie, however, glances at the proctor's computer, and a brilliant, unethical idea pops into his head. Deciding to give it a shot, his hand begins to glow with that familiar golden light as he activates his electronic hack skill, because studying is for people without cheat codes. After the test, everyone gathers around the results board to see who made the cut, and Momo is completely blown away by the results, her jaw practically on the floor, because our boy Kookie, the supposed dead last, has somehow landed in 3rd place. Meanwhile, Momo is having a full-blown panic attack over her 10-15th rank, certain she's failed. Kookie just smirks, confidently telling her she's definitely going to pass, no problem, because the written portion is just a preliminary cut, with the real challenge being the practical exam. And it seems Kookie's been doing his homework, keeping up with his own private skill research. He's also been leveling up his bind skill, getting a much better handle on it, and he's confident he's about ready to pull off a brand new move he's been cooking up. This practical exam begins with 100 students crammed into a massive, sterile white room, where the proctor announces a 100-person survival battle, and Momo is thrilled they're in the same group. This is all happening in a virtual field, so if you take too much damage, you're automatically out. These rules are simple. Defeat opponents for points, and only the top 10 with the highest scores will advance. And the proctor makes it crystal clear that this is the stage that crushes most applicants' dreams. This tension is thick, with everyone realizing only a handful of them are making it out of here. With a 15-minute time limit, the proctor snaps his fingers, and the exam officially begins. This world around Kookie instantly digitizes as he's transported into the battle arena. finding himself dropped into a dense forest with the second round now underway. Momo, however, is having the time of her life, cheerfully waving goodbye as she blasts off to find a fight. She immediately locks onto a target and unleashes a massive fireball without a second thought. And just like that, one poor student is already eliminated from the competition. While she's celebrating her first point, Koki notes that she really comes alive in a battle. Meanwhile, a trio of bullies spots Kuki, with their leader calling him the weakling, who just awakened. Kuki isn't fazed in the slightest, since he fully expected to be a popular target for easy points. One of the lackeys fires off an adhesive bullet, telling him not to take it personally, and the sticky projectile flies right at him, a seemingly guaranteed hit. But Kuki just casually sidesteps it, leaving his attacker completely stunned that he dodged. This other lackey unleashes a smokescreen, trying to blind Kuki for an easy takedown. But Kuki's completely unfazed, leaving the guy wondering if his magic is just built different. Switching to plan B, the bully activates his Iron Form skill for a direct physical assault, and Kuki just watches the glowing fist come right at his face without even flinching. He catches the punch with one hand, completely nullifying the attack and shattering the guy's confidence. Turns out Kuki was just cataloging their skills, noting they're all pretty useful for his own collection. With a green glow, he sarcastically thanks the trio for the free demonstration, as he prepares to show them what a real skill looks like. He summons a giant man-eating plant that immediately chomps down on the nearest bully. And just like that, the trio is eliminated, with Kuki casually admiring his new technique. Up in the control room, the proctors are stunned by his absolutely abnormal magic power. This head proctor seems impressed, but then wonders if anyone can land a hit on him. At that exact moment, a new challenger steps onto the virtual battlefield. It's the flashy, overconfident Arakawa Reo, and he's clearly here to make a scene. This proctor suddenly adds a new rule: land one hit on Reo, and you automatically pass. Everyone else panics, realizing they're up against one of the actual seventh saviors. An impossible task. This whole thing is just a publicity stunt for Rio's channel, a way to show off his power. He spreads his arms wide, practically begging the terrified students to come at him. But his internal monologue is pure villain. They're just pawns to boost his view count. This other students, however, see this as a golden opportunity for a comeback if they all work together. Rio sarcastically complains about being so popular as the students rush him from all sides, and with a casual wave, he unleashes a whirlwind that effortlessly blasts them all back. But one guy with a thorn shield actually gets close, catching Rio's attention for a moment. This sight triggers a memory for Kuki, of someone helpless against an overwhelming force, and he remembers the despair of watching a so-called savior act like a monster. Back in the fight, the Thorn user thinks he's got this, managing to block the initial gust. So Rio decides this kid is special and now deserves his personal, undivided attention. This other students are just blown away, completely unable to even approach the chaos. Annoyed that some punk is getting cocky, Rio powers up for a real attack, unleashing a brutal vortex of wind that shreds right through the Thorn shield. And the poor guy is instantly taken out, left bleeding and defeated on the ground. Just then, a pink-haired girl steps forward, realizing Rio has dragged everyone into his mess. She calls him out for going way too hard on mere exam applicants, but he just tells her to shut up before he decides to get serious with her too. She doesn't back down, declaring this is what a savior does, and unleashes a massive fireball, which Rio immediately dismisses as a pathetic circus-like trash skill. His counterattack sends her flying, completely overwhelmed by his raw power. As she falls, the Thorn Shield guy can only watch, totally helpless to intervene. This whole scene triggers a memory for Kuki of the girl in the hospital, and he instantly teleports in, catching the girl as Rio's attack bears down on them. Kuki stands firm, a shimmering aura deflecting the full force of Rio's attack. Rio's arrogant monologue echoes, calling her skills a losing ticket and threatening to kill any witnesses. This pink-haired girl can only struggle, completely overwhelmed by the so-called savior's power. But Kuki's already combining the skills he just copied, unleashing a thorny vine from his hand. This sudden spike in magic power completely catches Rio off guard, wiping the smirk right off his face. With a flash of purple in his eyes, Kuki unleashes the smokescreen he stole just moments ago, and a massive cloud of dark energy instantly engulfs the arrogant celebrity. Rio is left completely blind inside the smoke, wondering what kind of cheap trick this is. Before he can even react, a thorny vine lashes out, striking him directly across the chest. This blow is so solid that Rio actually coughs up blood, completely stunned by the impact. Kuki just stares him down, coldly confirming that he's landed the one required hit. Down on the ground, the girl is in awe, realizing he weaponized a skill he just saw. She can only watch, wondering just how much power our boy is really hiding. Rio, however, is absolutely furious, his own power flaring up in a rage. His ego completely shattered, he swears Kuki won't survive for daring to scratch his precious face. In his fury, he begins a summoning ritual, a dark vortex swirling into existence. From the portal emerges a massive, crackling tiger beast, radiating pure power. Rio proudly presents his ultimate trump card, the mythical beast, Fuma. Kuki immediately recognizes that this new threat is on an entirely different level. Meanwhile, Momo is having her own problems, facing off against a giant griffin elsewhere in the arena. Rio starts his villain monologue, bragging about his super rare summoning skill. He's apparently on a whole different level from these low-rank mages with their basic powers. In fact, his skill is in the top 0.0001%, and he's about to give Kuki a taste. This mythical beast lets out a roar, ready to turn our boy into a chew toy. But Kuki activates the iron transformation he just copied, refusing to go down without a fight. He charges straight into the beast's attack, getting absolutely shredded in the process. This sheer force of the blow sends him flying, completely stunned by the raw power. Down on one knee, Kuki can only watch as Ryo mockingly congratulates him for surviving the first hit. But the celebrity savior promises the next one will be the last, his face pure malice. Fuma looms over Kuki, ready to deliver the final devastating strike. Watching from the sidelines, the pink-haired girl screams for him to get out of there and run. Kuki knows she's right. At this rate, they're both about to be eliminated for good. But just as despair sets in, his eyes light up with a sudden realization, and we flash back to Kuki in a research facility, looking completely lost. A researcher suggests he try a new application for his bind skill. This was 3 weeks before the exam, when Kuki was still trying to figure things out. This guy explains that instead of just adding skills, he should try multiplying their effects. Kuki is floored, admitting he'd never even considered combining his powers in that way. It's a simple concept, really. 10 times 10 is a whole lot more than 10 plus 10. If he can pull it off, he could create a magic far more powerful than just stacking spells. With this new insight, Kuki realizes he's on the verge of a massive power-up, and the researcher confirms this S-rank technique is perfect for someone with his insane magic reserves. So our boy vows to master this new method before the big exam. This first step is to read the books for 2 different skills simultaneously, and then mentally forge an entirely new skill from the 2 concepts, an idea that has Kuki completely focused on the possibilities. He immediately tries combining gravity manipulation with the Thorn user skill he just copied, putting every ounce of his concentration into the 2 open books. And for a second, it looks like the thorny, gravity-infused magic might actually merge, but it completely fizzles out, leaving him to flail in frustration. Turns out, just using 2 different attributes at once is already a superhuman feat, and actually combining them to create a new spell is considered the realm of gods. Flashing back to the present, the researcher watches on, knowing what Kuki is attempting. Kuki knows he's been training for 3 weeks straight without a breakthrough, and if he doesn't figure this out now, Ryo is going to eliminate both him and Momo. That's when he reveals his trump card. He just copied Momo's fireball skill. Remembering how Ryo dismissed it as a pathetic circus trick and how he effortlessly blasted her out of the sky without a second thought, Kuki clenches his fist, knowing that Momo's skill is anything but weak, realizing its simplicity is its greatest strength, a perfect, versatile base for his new technique. As a new power surges through him, Kuki feels his heart practically burning with potential, and in his mind, the image of the 2 skills finally clicks into place. With newfound determination, he realizes he can actually pull this impossible technique off. A massive aura of pure fire erupts around him, channeling the very skill Ryo mocked. His eyes glowing with intense focus, ready to unleash this brand new magic, and the raw power radiating from him even makes the mythical beast hesitate for a moment. Ryo is completely stunned, wondering how this nobody still has so much energy left. But Momo just smiles, realizing Kuki is about to get some serious payback for her. He activates his bind skill, pouring all that fiery energy into his hand, and suddenly chunks of the ground begin to float, each one now a burning projectile. He's combining gravity manipulation and fireball, a confident smirk on his face, creating his own personal meteor shower, a true S-rank technique born on the spot. Ryo just stares up at the sky, completely baffled by this impossible new spell. In a total panic, he screams for his pet tiger to just blow the whole thing away. Fuma unleashes a massive energy beam, aiming to intercept the fiery barrage, and the 2 attacks collide in a spectacular screen-shaking explosion, but Kuki's meteors just power right through, raining down on the beast. This entire area is engulfed in a massive fiery blast, completely overwhelming Fuma. Ryo can only watch in utter disbelief as his trump card gets absolutely demolished, and Kuki just stands there, having turned a circus trick into a god-tier attack. Back in the control room, the researcher watches the explosion, casually noting the collateral damage. From above, the sheer scale of the blast is clear, with 2 figures left standing in the crater, and Momo can only stare in disbelief, completely stunned by what just happened. When the smoke clears, Ryo is left panting while his mythical beast is completely knocked out. So Kuki smirks, telling Ryo this is the real power of the skill he called a circus trick. Hearing him defend her like that, Momo is left completely speechless and blushing. Kuki then lays into him, saying Ryo isn't strong. He just lucked into a strong skill. He calls out the celebrity for looking down on everyone else, which clearly hits a nerve, sending Ryo's entire worldview cracking under the pressure of this humiliation. Because in his mind, he's one of the chosen few, and this just can't be happening. But Kuki isn't finished, repeating that without his fancy skill, Ryo is absolutely nothing. He flat out rejects the idea of chosen people, insisting no such thing exists. Which just makes Ryo snap, screaming that of course there are, and he's one of them. And we flash back to a 6-year-old Ryo, already living a life of absolute privilege. Sitting at a fancy dinner as his parents begin to instill their twisted worldview in him, his mother tells him he's special, a chosen one who can have whatever he desires, while his father adds some stellar parenting. Just take what you want, everyone else is garbage. Turns out he's been hammered with this chosen one mentality his entire life, even seen as a kid literally stepping on another boy just to take his spot. This toxic mantra was his entire upbringing, that he can do anything because others are worthless. This chosen one complex started early, with him literally standing above other kids. This moment he awakened his summoning skill, his ego went into absolute overdrive, and of course everyone around him just ate it up, fawning over his amazing power. This 1 in a million skill was all the proof he needed that he was just born better. He even abuses his own summon, ordering it around to show off his dominance. And Fuma clearly isn't happy about it, but what's a mythical beast to do when its master is a spoiled brat who'll just kick it for a cheap laugh? With this much talent, he was convinced there was nothing in the world he couldn't obtain. Back in the present, he's still spewing that same garbage at Kuki, bragging that he has everything, including the money to buy his way out of trouble. This other students are just trying to figure out who the real monster is here. And to prove his point, Rio chugs a very suspicious-looking glowing potion. Turns out, it's a super rare item you can't just find on the street. A little cheat code that not only gives him a full recovery, but also doubles his magic power, sending his aura flaring up. Kuki immediately recognizes it as a reinforcement item, and his face says it all. Rio just smirks, rubbing in the fact that his wallet is now his greatest weapon. Since his magic is doubled, his pet tiger Fuma gets a massive power boost too, leaving our boy completely stunned, realizing the fight just got twice as hard. Rio smugly asks if Kuki has any fight left, standing beside his roided-out summon. Rio's face is pure psycho as he declares the fight is officially over, and Momo can only watch in terror, knowing Kuki is completely outmatched. So he orders his super tiger to go turn our boy into finely diced sashimi. But Fuma just stands there, looking completely over this whole situation. Even Kuki seems a little confused by the sudden act of defiance, which sends Rio into a full-blown tantrum, screaming at his pet for disobeying, and then he actually kicks the mythical beast, calling it his dog. Classy. That turns out to be a massive mistake, as Fuma finally snaps and turns on its master, leaving Rio completely baffled as to why his own summon would ever defy him. That's when Kuki reveals the problem. He just copied Rio's 1 in a million skill. Rio's brain just short-circuits, unable to process what's happening, because when a skill has two owners, the summon follows the stronger connection, and Kuki's bond is about to get a whole lot stronger. This gears finally turn in Rio's head as he realizes he's up against a copycat. So he tries to win Fuma back by yelling about seniority, which is just sad, while Kuki calmly explains that unlike some people, he actually believed in the beast. He couldn't connect with Fuma at first, even after copying the skill, but Rio's little temper tantrum was apparently the final straw, because now Fuma has officially switched sides and Kuki is its new master, its glowing eyes making it crystal clear who it's fighting for now. Rio is completely dumbfounded as Fuma calmly walks over to Kuki's side, and our boy explains the beast finally bailed because Rio treats everyone like a disposable tool. Turns out, even mythical summons get to choose who they'd rather fight for, which sends Rio into a full-on toddler tantrum, screaming for his pet to come back. Kuki then twists the knife, reminding him that he's the one who doubled Fuma's power, and his new supercharged partner is already powering up a massive attack, unleashing a devastating wind's roar right at its former very surprised master. This blast absolutely shreds Rio, giving him a front-row seat to his own summon's true power. He gets tossed through the air like a rag doll, landing in a pathetic heap on the ground. Even while eating dirt, Rio is still sputtering about how he's the chosen one, but Kuki walks over, hand glowing, and demands that he apologize to Momo. Rio just glares up, his ego too big to even process the command. So Kuki uses his bind skill to slam the guy's face into the ground, repeating the order. All the spoiled brat can do is scream in humiliation as he's forcibly bowed. A system message then declares Rio eliminated, officially ending the match. Momo can only watch from the sidelines, completely floored by the entire ordeal, while the other students look on in total shock, their jaws on the floor. But just as the victory sinks in, the exhaustion finally catches up to Kuki and he collapses. He wakes up a little later, staring up from a bed in the infirmary, with Momo standing over him, calling his name with a worried look on her face. She explains he was out for a whole week thanks to some serious magic power overuse, but Momo quickly grabs his hand, insisting she's the one who owes him everything. And with a massive blush, she thanks him for protecting her from that spoiled brat. Kuki just lies there, a bit stunned by her sudden and very intense gratitude, until his brain reboots and he remembers the exam, frantically asking what happened. With a huge grin, Momo proudly shows off her new badge, announcing she passed, and our boy gives her a genuine smile, relieved that she made it through okay. He then gets all gloomy, assuming he must have failed since he collapsed mid-fight, clenching the sheets as he thinks his chance to change the world is already gone, which just leaves Momo completely baffled by his sudden pessimism, because she immediately reveals that he passed the exam too, holding out his badge. Sometime later, we're at a massive official-looking building for the inauguration ceremony, and Kuki is there in his new uniform, but just passing isn't enough for him, because it turns out he was dead set on taking first place in the entire exam. Meanwhile, the other students are already whispering about him, the guy who defeated Reo, and a new student confirms that Kuki's victory is making people question the seventh saviors. This guy hopes it proves the current heroes aren't actually capable of saving anyone. Right as the ceremony kicks off with a massive light show to introduce the world's strongest, a stern-looking blue-haired sorcerer named Sagai Tetsu, also known as Number 1. While his aura is impressive, some students are already wondering if he's just another paper tiger like Rio. But Sege shuts them all down with a single word and a massive surge of ice magic, instantly freezing the entire massive hall with a casual flick of his wrist, leaving the students completely awestruck by this insane display of power. He then gives them a reality check, saying their enemies are just waiting for them to fail, and that all their fancy magic power is just a dinner bell for actual monsters. His message is brutally simple: get strong, because their new lives demand it. He defines a certified sorcerer as someone who just hasn't died yet. Real inspiring stuff. This whole doom and gloom speech apparently triggers a flashback for a pink-haired girl, who is completely starstruck, calling Sage her idol, much to Kuki's confusion. She explains her admiration stems from a childhood incident where she fell into a hole, flashing back to her as a little girl, trapped and crying her eyes out in a dark pit. Things got way worse when two demonic-looking hounds cornered her, ready for a snack, and one of the beasts lunges forward to attack the terrified child, leaving her to scream, completely helpless, and sure this was the end. But just as she braces for impact, she peeks open an eye to find the monster frozen solid in a block of ice right in front of her. That's when a younger Sage appears, his hands still glowing with ice magic, telling her that if she's strong, she won't ever have to cry again. This single moment became her inspiration, sparking her dream to become a hero just like him. Hearing her story, Koki gives a little smile, finally understanding her resolve. This pink-haired girl turns the tables, asking Koki for his big motivation, and our boy drops a bombshell of an answer. He's here to stop the apocalypse. She immediately connects this to his earlier trash talk about the seventh saviors, and her mind jumps to a wild conclusion that maybe Koki is from the future. But she quickly laughs it off, saying it's just a joke and he's just a skill prodigy. While Kuki's internal monologue reveals he was supposed to die in that apocalypse, which he accidentally says out loud, making her completely freak out. He asks her to take him seriously for a second, and the mood instantly shifts. Seeing the look on his face, she realizes he's dead serious. The world is actually ending. Kuki just gives a grim confirmation, and the weight of it all sinks in. She asks if he's actually seen this future and if even Sage is powerless against it. A grim flashback shows the hellscape he's talking about, total, utter defeat. He explains that no one can face that alone, emphasizing the need for comrades. This word comrades hangs in the air, catching her completely off guard, as he admits she's the first person he's told, calling her his very first comrade. This gets a massive blush and a happy thank you from the pink-haired girl. She then asks the obvious question, why not just tell everyone he's a regressor? Turns out, regression is a lost magic that even top scholars barely know exists. Plus, if word got out, he's worried his own sister would become a target. Understanding the stakes, she gets right to business, asking what their next move is. Kuki clenches his fist, vowing he became a sorcerer specifically to gather allies for this fight, believing that with enough comrades, they can actually rewrite the apocalyptic future. And with that, his new life as a certified sorcerer officially begins with his first new ally, the pink-haired girl, conveniently assigned to his team. Their first mission takes them to the edge of a massive crater, a dungeon entrance. Two senior sorcerers are leading the way, casually asking if this is their first time in a hole. Kuki admits to himself that while he's done virtual training, this is his first real monster hunt. This seniors just laugh it off, promising it's a beginner-level dungeon with nothing to worry about. Both rookies look a little tense, but agree to follow their lead into the abyss. This buff senior then just leaps straight down, kicking off their first official dive. This whole team descends into the cavern, ready for whatever's waiting for them below. It's a C-rank dungeon swarming with bat-like monsters, which the seniors start clearing out. This idea is for the rookies to just watch and learn how the pros handle things. But the bandana-wearing senior quickly realizes they're dealing with a lot more monsters than expected. He lets a few slip past on purpose, telling the rookies it's time to show him what they've got. Kuki instantly summons his thorny vines while his partner conjures up a ball of fire. They unleash their attacks, in perfect sync, taking out the monster without breaking a sweat. This senior is pretty impressed by their spirit, though Kuki insists he can do even more. His partner just smiles, telling him to pace himself since every overeager rookie says that. But Kuki is still fired up, determined to prove he's not just any other newbie. He unleashes a massive combo of thorns and fire, absolutely incinerating the remaining monsters, which gets a huge cheer from his partner, and even a nod of approval from the seniors. Turns out, killing monsters is how mages absorb magic and level up, a pretty standard system. But Kuki is already bummed out, realizing C-rank mobs give practically zero experience. Moments later, they're back on the surface, with Kuki peering back into the dungeon, and his partner celebrates their successful first mission as the hole seals itself shut. This bandana-wearing senior asks how she liked it, and she's just happy they made it out safely. But Kuki immediately cuts in, asking if they can tackle a higher-level dungeon right now. This sudden intensity catches his new comrade completely off guard, and the buff senior admits his skills are impressive. But there's a catch. He explains that raw power means nothing without actual field experience against real threats. Kuki just silently accepts the lecture, his impatience clearly getting the better of him. Later, the two are grabbing a bite to eat, and our boy is still stewing over his slow start, finally admitting to himself that the seniors had a point about his inexperience. His mind flashes back to the apocalyptic future he's trying to prevent, a world filled with monsters he knows he can't beat with his current half-baked skills. His partner reminds him that the sorcerer world is a strict hierarchy where rank dictates everything, and she can tell he's still getting antsy even though he knows the rules. That's when Kuki drops the timeline. The world ends in 4 years and 10 months, so his first priority is to gather more trustworthy allies, starting with her. She just calmly munches on her sandwich as Kuki lays out his grand world-saving strategy. Step 2 is gaining enough status and influence so people actually believe his doomsday warnings. Third, he needs to copy a ton of skills, starting with defensive abilities to protect everyone. On top of that, he plans to hoard healing magic to patch up the inevitable casualties. His new comrade looks a little stunned by the sheer scope of this, asking what's next. Kuki's fourth point is brutally simple. He has to get strong enough to beat what even Sage couldn't. He slams the table, furious that his current slow progress won't cut it for the apocalypse. She tries to cut in, a little worried about his sudden desperation, before suggesting a massive shortcut. Becoming a 7th savior instantly makes you SS rank. This is brand new information for Kuki, who immediately perks up at the possibility. His mind starts racing, realizing that joining the saviors would grant him access to top-tier dungeons. Meanwhile, in a very serious-looking meeting room, the 7 saviors themselves are gathered. Number 5, a researcher type named Ashiya Hikaru, asks what's on the agenda. Number 2, Jumon Seijuro reveals the topic is none other than the rookie Kuki. Number 4, Kyuki Ranbu immediately scoffs, calling him the brat who humiliated Ryo. Jumon explains that Kuki used his Thornmaster skill and then a completely different one. This gets number 3, Igawa Himeka, to ask the obvious question, does he have multiple skills? While number 6, Suzaki Irori, couldn't care less, Jumon confirms it's an impossible feat. This old man then turns to the head of the table, asking Sagai for his opinion on the matter. But Sagai just stands up abruptly, conjuring an ice blade as if he's been summoned elsewhere. And just as he's about to leave, Kuki himself appears in the doorway, looking way too calm. This rest of the saviors are completely floored by his sudden, uninvited entrance. Sage, however, just looks mildly annoyed, his ice blade still crackling with power. He immediately demands to know how Kuki bypassed their high-tech security system, while our boy just shows off the glowing magic circle on his hand, a little smirk on his face. This researcher notes it's a lightning skill, as another savior asks him what he wants. Kuki cuts right to the chase, saying he's here to ask for a favor. This gets a very intrigued "oh" from the old man Jumon. Kuki then drops his bombshell request directly to Sagai. Let him join the 7 saviors. This buff guy, Kuki, absolutely loses his mind at the sheer audacity of this rookie. But Jumon calmly points out that since Kuki beat number 7, it's only fair he takes the spot. This researcher lady then calls him out, reminding him he's the one who said they couldn't save the world. Kuki doesn't deny it, explaining this is his shortcut to S-rank and high-level dungeons. Jumon confirms the rank-skipping system is a real perk of the job, but points out that even Sage took half a year to get that strong, and Kuki's been a pro for like 5 minutes. Our boy doesn't care about the timeline, insisting he has to get stronger and fast. This sets Kuki off, who gets right in his face, telling him not to get arrogant over one lucky win. He starts lecturing him on how promotions are earned through slow, steady dungeon grinding. This big guy powers up, ready to teach him a lesson with his fists, but Sage tells him to stand down. Meanwhile, Jumon connects the dots, realizing Kuki might just be able to copy other people's skills. Kuki freezes up, realizing the old man just figured out his biggest secret on the spot. Kuki, however, is having a full-blown meltdown over a skill like that even existing. This researcher finds this incredibly intriguing, while the sleepy one just wants to go home. Jumon cuts the tension, politely telling the uninvited rookie that it's time for him to leave. Turns out Kuki's whole plan was to copy one of their skills, and it completely backfired. With his main objective shot, he decides it's time to pull out his final desperate strategy, which involves unleashing a ridiculous amount of lightning magic just to make a point. This sheer power output catches the other saviors completely off guard, even the old man. Even Sage looks genuinely surprised for a split second by the rookie's raw energy. Kuki immediately assumes the kid is dumb enough to try and fight all of them at once. But instead of attacking, Kuki pulls a 180 and gives a deep formal bow. He starts laying it on thick, promising to take their wise words to heart and train harder. He even personally thanks Kuki for the lecture that has apparently changed his entire worldview. With his performance complete, Kuki turns to leave like a properly chastised underling. Just as he planned, Kuki calls out to him, completely falling for the bait. Turns out Kuki's one weakness is a polite junior, and Kuki is playing it perfectly. Our boy keeps up the humble act, though he's cringing internally at his own bootlicking. Now that he's calmed down, Kuki asks the kid why he's so obsessed with getting stronger. Kuki sees his opening and prepares to drop the most manipulative sob story ever, claiming his older sister has collapsed and is in the hospital, which is why he's in such a rush. And just like that, the big guy is a blubbering mess, completely buying the sick sister routine. Our boy even squeezes out a single perfectly timed tear for maximum dramatic effect. This buffoon is so moved he grabs Kuki, promising to personally oversee his special training. Next thing you know, they're in a private arena where Kuki explains his main skill is barrier creation. Turns out, Kuki did his homework and specifically targeted Kuki to copy his defensive abilities. He's thinking a solid barrier is exactly what he needs to actually protect people in the future. So Kuki sets up the test, a simple skill versus barrier showdown to gauge his power. He summons his signature move, a massive glowing slab called the Wall of Resolve. This challenge is simple enough, he just tells Kuki to try and punch it. Kuki powers up his iron form, winding back to smash a hole straight through the thing, and he lands a solid hit, creating a massive shockwave on impact, only to realize a split second too late that something is very, very wrong. This wall immediately blasts him backwards with a hexagonal counterattack of its own. Kyuki explains the gimmick. The wall reflects all damage back at whoever attacks it. To break it, you have to keep wailing on it and just tank all the recoil. If Kuki can shatter it and still stand, Kyuki will personally take him on S-rank dungeon runs. Seeing his golden ticket, Kuki decides to unveil another impossible trick, a bind skill. He fuses his Fuma familiar with a fireball, summoning a massive roaring flame tiger. Kyuki is absolutely floored, having never seen anyone combine two distinct skills before. With a single command, Kuki orders his new pet to unleash hell directly at the wall. This flame tiger unleashes a torrent of fire, completely engulfing the barrier in a massive explosion, and Kyuki can't believe his eyes. His signature wall just got one-shotted by a rookie. Our boy braces himself for the recoil that's supposed to blast him into next week, only to realize he's completely unharmed, not a single point of damage taken. Turns out the wall's reflection gimmick doesn't work if you just nuke it with overwhelming power. This buffoon is so impressed he declares Koki has officially earned his respect, and Kuki is just beaming, his master manipulation plan coming together perfectly. So Kuki starts powering up, getting ready to officially share his skill, which is exactly the opening Kuki needed to activate his copy ability. Kuki asks if he just swiped the skill, and our boy proudly confirms he's got absolute barrier. This big guy is happy to share, smugly confident that a cheap copy could never beat the original. But then he gets serious, asking Kuki why he doesn't trust the Ministry of Magic. This question triggers a grim memory for Kuki of his comrades falling in a past battle. Kuki drops a bomb of his own, admitting that he can't trust them either, explaining that the ministry's leader has been acting suspicious and their true allies are unknown. Just as they're finding some common ground, the conversation takes a dark turn. Kuki suddenly starts coughing up a horrifying amount of blood out of nowhere. Kuki is completely stunned, watching his new mentor suddenly collapse in front of him. A quick flashback reveals the old man, Jumon, was behind this all along, looking sinister, and it all ties back to the head of the ministry, who used future sight to predict the apocalypse. This flashback reveals Jumon was the one who designated the 7 saviors, and Kuki can't understand why he'd target one of his own chosen heroes. Back in the present, he watches Jumon stand over Kuki's bleeding body, leaving our boy completely horrified by the sudden brutal betrayal. Kuki is paralyzed on the floor, unable to move as he bleeds out, and the old man raises a blood-soaked sword to finish off Kuki next. Thinking fast, Kuki throws up the absolute barrier he just copied, which thankfully manages to block the old man's surprise attack. He immediately retaliates with his Thorn Master skill, trying to pin Jumon down, but the old man's eyes glow as he activates his own trump card, Future Sight. Jumon effortlessly weaves through every single one of Kuki's attacks, and our boy realizes with dawning horror that he's fighting someone who sees the future. His thorny vines can't even touch the guy, who dodges with inhuman grace, making Kuki question how his movements are even physically possible. Turns out Jumon isn't reacting at all, he's just following a pre-written script, which leaves Kuki completely exposed and outmaneuvered, as the old man just casually sidesteps his desperate assault, proving the gap between them is way bigger than he ever imagined. This scene cuts to the ministry morgue, where Kuki stands over Kuki's lifeless body. He can only apologize, completely devastated that he failed to save his new mentor. As he mourns, Kuki starts connecting some very uncomfortable dots, wondering how the great archmage could predict the apocalypse, but somehow missed the part where his own 7 saviors get completely wiped out. Then a horrifying thought hits him. What if the old man saw it all, and knew from the very beginning that his chosen heroes were destined to fail? But that just raises an even bigger question. Why set them up for a fall? And just as he's spiraling, he remembers the tracker he planted on Jumon. Turns out during their fight, he tagged the old man with a sticky bullet skill, a tiny, almost unnoticeable magic projectile that latched right onto him. This skill gives him a live feed of Jumon's location, a direct path to answers, and Kuki realizes he has to confront the Archmage himself to get the truth. This tracker leads him to a heavily fortified, top-secret-looking facility. He slips inside and peeks into a room not at all prepared for what he finds, which is a massive chamber filled with rows and rows of cryogenic pods. Before he can even process the scene, the great Archmage appears right behind him, sword drawn, and immediately launches a surprise attack, forcing Kuki to dive for his life. Thinking fast, our boy grabs a loose pipe and activates his iron body skill, managing to block the Archmage's next strike with his new, highly professional plumbing sword. This old man doesn't even flinch, his own blade glowing with sinister energy, as the two of them clash in a desperate battle among the strange machines. This Archmage taunts him, asking if he's confused why his future-proof attacks are suddenly failing. Kuki drops the Uno reverse card. He copied Future Sight, and now their powers are canceling each other out. This old man just smirks, confident that Kuki's bootleg version of the skill is completely scrambled. They break apart, and Kuki swings a piece of scrap metal with everything he's got. He demands to know what the Archmage really saw in his predictions, desperate for the truth. Still locked in a stalemate with his trusty pipe sword, Kuki presses him for answers. He lays it all out. How could the Archmage see the apocalypse but miss his own team getting wiped? Kuki accuses him of knowing full well what horrors were coming for everyone, and that by staying silent, he basically signed everyone's death warrant himself. Fueled by pure rage, our boy swears he'll never forgive this monumental betrayal. He brings his pipe down with enough force to shatter the old man's defenses, only for the Archmage's face to start melting into a pile of disgusting sludge. This entire body dissolves into a splash of mud, splattering all over the floor, leaving Kuki completely baffled that he wasn't fighting a person at all. A familiar voice confirms his suspicion, and it's the researcher from the Savior's headquarters. This guy stands over the muddy remains with a look that is far from friendly, before dropping the bombshell that the real great Archmage has been dead for a while. Koki recognizes him as Ashia, Savior number 5, and demands to know what's going on. Ashia just smirks, condescendingly telling Koki he's a little slow on the uptake. Turns out his skill is mud puppet. He's been controlling corpses this whole time. Ashia gloats that the legendary Archmage was nothing more than his personal meat puppet, and Kuki's brain just short-circuits trying to process this level of betrayal. He immediately realizes that if the Archmage was a fake, the entire prophecy was a lie too, which Ashia smugly confirms, admitting he made his puppet spew all that nonsense. His grand reason for all this: to make sure the world gets destroyed properly. Kuki is absolutely livid, finally understanding the true enemy was on his team all along. This guy explains the apocalypse was always coming, a simple scientific fact he couldn't hide, so he fabricated the prophecy and the 7 saviors to give everyone a false sense of security. With heroes to believe in, the public felt safe and completely relaxed, letting their guard down just as he planned, making it that much easier for him to swoop in and shatter their world himself. Kuki can't wrap his head around it, asking why anyone would want to help the apocalypse. And Ashia drops another bomb. The world has to end because it's their will. Before Kuki can even ask who they are, the conversation gets even darker, as Ashia confesses to murdering the real Archmage just to sell his lie about the saviors. This sheer calculated evil of this plan leaves Kuki completely stunned, wondering if this psycho is actually being serious about orchestrating global doom. It all clicks into place: the monster attacks, the deaths, all of it was part of this guy's script. Ashia even brags about making himself Savior number 5, just for the convenience of it all. But then he focuses on Kuki, noting that our boy's weird skills and knowledge make him a major loose end. Ashia gets serious, a magic circle glowing on his hand as he calls Kuki a major inconvenience. Kuki is completely blindsided by this sudden escalation, as mud erupts from the ground all around them, and Ashia activates his mud puppet skill to summon a personal army. Turns out he's been collecting the corpses of dead mages, and now they're all charging at Kuki. Our boy, absolutely done with this guy's monologue, blocks a punch with a hardened fist. He shatters one of the puppets, demanding to know what kind of psycho actually wants to end the world. Ashia just gives him a smug grin, saying there's no point explaining since he's about to die anyway. With an entire zombie horde closing in, Kuki realizes he's in a seriously bad spot. So he activates his bind skill, a glowing sigil appearing on his palm, and combines it with gravity and fire to completely obliterate one of the puppets. This actually impresses Ashia, who's fascinated that Kuki can combine his copied skills. He gets a deeply unsettling look in his eyes, deciding he absolutely has to dissect our boy. This psycho pulls out a syringe, cheerfully announcing he's adding Kuki to his collection. But instead of attacking, he just jabs the needle right into his own neck. His body immediately bulks up to ridiculous proportions, powered by some enhanced mud. Kuki can't believe it, and Ashia explains his mud can also power up the living, not just puppets. This buffed-up villain throws a punch, and Kuki can barely block the overwhelming force. He's already burning through his magic reserves just to stay alive, realizing he's out of options. Ashia just taunts him from above, disappointed that this is all the legendary copycat can do. Backed into a corner, Kuki binds Future Sight and Absolute Barrier into a single perfect counter. Ashia barely manages to block it, a flicker of understanding crossing his face. Turns out he fused the Archmage's precognition with Kuki's shield for a perfect auto-counter. This new and improved barrier sends the roided-out researcher flying across the room, but Ashia just scoffs, pointing out he has way more mana for this little war of attrition. And he's not wrong, Kuki's perfect defense immediately starts to crack under the strain. So Kuki throws a third skill into the mix, adding his Thorn user ability to the combo. Those thorny vines slam right into Ashia, who's stunned he's juggling 3 skills at once. Our boy just gives him a smug little wink, finally getting the upper hand. Ashia is floored, realizing Koki is predicting, defending, and counterattacking all at once. With the villain on the ropes, Koki demands to know what he is and why he's orchestrating the apocalypse. Ashia decides to humor him, explaining the apocalypse is just monsters coming to devour the world's magic. Turns out, he's been the one pumping magic into the human world this whole time, and a horrifying realization dawns on Kuki as the pieces click into place. Ashia confirms it: the monsters gave humanity magic as a kind of atmospheric terraforming project, and as a bonus, humans marinated in magic power are apparently a delicacy for them. Humanity was basically being fattened up like cosmic livestock for the eventual slaughter. Kuki can't wrap his head around it, asking if Ashia is really okay with this plan. He points out that Ashia is human too, meaning he's on the menu with everyone else. Ashia just smirks, asking whoever said he was human in the first place. Kuki is completely stunned, trying to process the whole not human bombshell, and before he gets an answer, Ashia's body starts to violently contort as golden wings erupt from his back, his form twisting into something nightmarish. He calmly removes his glasses, revealing a face that's now all teeth and fury, his entire body warping into a grotesque fusion of man and monster. Our boy can only stare up in disbelief, realizing this is way past a simple power-up. And then he sees the final form, a horrifying chimera straight out of his worst memories. Kuki's blood runs cold because he recognizes this creature immediately. A flashback hits him of a fellow savior shoving her own sister forward as a decoy. throwing her directly into the path of a monster's devastating attack. A younger Kuki was there, completely helpless and confused by the sudden betrayal. This so-called hero just declared his own life was far more valuable than hers. He remembers the older sister looking up in despair, sacrificed by her own team. And he remembers the monster that killed her, the very same one standing before him now. It all clicks into place, a horrifying, world-shattering puzzle finally complete. This beast gloats that the truly chosen will survive by devouring everyone else. Kuki just collapses to his knees, the weight of every lie finally crushing him. He looks up, his face a mask of pure, soul-shattering despair. Ashia congratulates him for making it this far, then charges up a final lethal blast, and with a casual goodbye, unleashes a massive beam to wipe Kuki off the map. Kuki can only stare in horror as the attack descends, completely out of options. And as the blast hits, he realizes he's totally out of magic, unable to even move. But just as he's about to be erased, some kind of ancient magic sigil activates, sending him plummeting through a strange void, refusing to just lay down and die. He desperately tries to summon his absolute barrier, a last-ditch effort to survive, but his body just won't respond, his magic completely sealed off for some reason. Back in the real world, the explosion rips through the room, leaving nothing behind. We flash back to a few days ago where a mysterious woman was asking about his true skill, a silver-haired woman who seems to know a whole lot more about his powers than he does. She explains that just copying skills is child's play compared to what he can really do, leaving Kuki completely lost, not even realizing he had a unique skill to begin with. This idea that he has his own personal magic leaves him totally flustered and blushing. He asks how to activate it, and she lays out the very specific conditions. Turns out he has to bind and activate 7 different skills all at the same time. Our boy's brain just about short-circuits hearing that absolutely insane requirement. She clarifies that every skill he's copied is actually a key to unlocking his true potential, and once he uses 7 of them together, he'll finally get to the good stuff. This will apparently open his crest, a gateway to his real untapped power. Kuki just stands there, trying to wrap his head around juggling 7 skills, when he admits the most he's ever managed to combine at once was 2. This silver-haired woman figures he could probably manage 3 skills in a real fight, but warns him that attempting to bind 7 will instantly zero out his magic reserves. She then lays out the final, crucial condition with a knowing smile, explaining it's a one-shot ultimate that can only be activated at full power. Back in the present, Kuki desperately tries to summon his barrier as the death beam descends, but his body is completely unresponsive, his magic totally gone. He's begging for just a spark of power as Ashia's attack is about to hit, when out of nowhere, a pink-haired girl tackles him out of the blast's path, shielding him with her own body as the explosion rips through the room. He looks up, completely stunned, as the girl, Momo, asks why he's so surprised. She reminds him that he's the one who sent her a message with his location, and Kuki remembers sending it as a last-ditch failsafe just in case. He immediately tells her to run, insisting the enemy is way too dangerous, explaining that he's out of magic and she can't possibly fight that thing alone. But instead of leaving, Momo starts charging up a fireball in her hands, and then launches the attack directly at a very confused Kuki. Ashia's monster form just laughs, finding this sudden infighting absolutely delightful. As the flames envelop Kuki, however, they transform into a soothing pink aura. Turns out it was a healing fireball, and she declares she'd never abandon a comrade. Kuki is completely floored as he feels his magic power suddenly recovering. Momo asks him point-blank if a full tank of magic is enough to finally beat this guy. And Kuki is just baffled, wondering when she suddenly learned high-tier support magic. She gives him the classic "a lot happened" non-answer, with a flashback to some serious trauma. She promises to fill him in later, right after he's done mopping the floor with this winged freak. Ashia, meanwhile, is just delighted. A rare healer would be a prize for his puppet collection. With his strength returning, Kuki thanks her, his determination finally back online. He flashes back to his past, remembering all the times he was powerless and afraid. But he knows this time is different from all those moments of weakness. He's not the same kid who got bullied for having no magic, nor is he the brother who always had to be saved by his sister. Now he has friends he can actually trust standing right beside him, and on top of that, he finally has his own unique magic to command. This monster just scoffs at this little power of friendship speech, calling it useless. He brags that his body has insane recovery, meaning nothing short of a one-shot will even scratch him. And he's absolutely certain Kuki doesn't have a single skill strong enough to do the job. To prove his point, Ashia charges up another massive beam right from his toothy maw, but Kuki begins to bind his copied skills, starting with Fireball, Thorns, and Gravity. Then adds 4 more, including Absolute Barrier and even Mud Puppet for a total of 7. Ashia unleashes his attack, convinced this desperate light show is completely pointless, as a brand new power erupts from Kuki, effortlessly shielding them from the blast. Ashia is in complete disbelief that his ultimate attack was actually blocked. He then spots the source, a black crest of ancient magic glowing on Kuki's hand. With his new power awakened, Kuki vows to end this right here and save the world. He unleashes his very first unique skill, a devastating blast of pure darkness, called Vanta Black, and the attack absolutely flattens Ashia, reverting him to some kind of weakened human form. This researcher can only gasp in pain, his eyes rolling back in his head from the impact. He collapses to the floor, completely defeated and unable to comprehend what just happened. Kuki gives Momo a grateful smile, thanking her for the assist that made this win possible. But his celebration is cut short as the recoil from his new power rips through his body, sending him crashing to his knees in agony as Momo rushes to his side. He stares at the crest, realizing this ancient magic comes with a serious physical price tag. Turns out this kind of power is supposed to be extinct, only wielded by legends like the Great Archmage, or by those who've read ancient grimoires, and it always puts a massive strain on the user. He remembers the silver-haired woman telling him his true skill was far more powerful than he knew, and the reality of having his own unique magic finally starts to sink in for our boy. Back in the present, Momo helps him up, checking to see if he's still in one piece. Kuki clenches his fist, knowing he has to master this incredible power if he wants to get stronger. Meanwhile, on the streets of Japan, people are staring at their phones in absolute shock. A news alert is spreading like wildfire. The Great Archmage has suddenly vanished without a trace. In fact, the world is reeling from the news that he, Kuki, and number 4 are all missing. So, after getting absolutely flattened by Kuki, Ashiya is now chained up in some dingy room, where he's being interrogated as the prime suspect in a few very high-profile disappearances. His interrogator is none other than number 3, the head of police, Ise Himika, and she's getting a little tired of his silent treatment, asking if he's ready to talk. Ashiya just offers a smug little smile, clearly enjoying the 5-star hospitality. Himika lays out the evidence. His mud was on the Archmage's body, and the Archmage's sword was on Kuki's. She then asks why, for a supposed mastermind, he was found passed out in a crater. He just plays dumb with a who knows, which is definitely the wrong answer to give this woman. Himika decides she's done playing nice and starts powering up for some enhanced interrogation, summoning a whole arsenal of magical torture devices to test his pain tolerance. But Ashiya starts laughing, claiming this is exactly what he needed to unleash his real abilities. Himika is absolutely thrilled by this development, deciding to start with his abs because of course she is. And this psycho just grins through the pain, actually complimenting her technique. Elsewhere, a blue-haired guy stands over a body covered by a sheet in a morgue. He solemnly swears that he's finally avenged the person lying there. It's Kuki, the silver-haired woman, and he's convinced Ashiya is the one who killed her. At that exact moment, a glowing grimoire materializes right in front of him out of thin air. He realizes it's linked to the mud puppet skill he copied from Ashiya, questioning the timing. As the book reveals, the skill's first function is controlling corpses, just like Ashiya did with the Archmage. But its second, far more mysterious function is something called Soldal, which sounds incredibly ominous. Kuki's brain short-circuits. The Soldal skill can revive the dead, but only if they were killed by a mud puppet. This means he has a one-shot chance to bring back Kuki, who was taken out by the Archmage's puppet form. This risk of failure is massive, but he knows he absolutely has to take this chance, because if there's even the slightest possibility of saving him, it's worth everything. With his mind made up, he activates the skill, pouring golden magic onto Kuki's body. A bright light erupts, and a tiny, chibi version of Kuki materializes on the floor. As the original body on the table turns to dust, the revival is officially a success. Kuki just stares, hardly believing his eyes as the spell finally settles down. This little guy blinks, suddenly aware of his new and very small surroundings. He sits up completely bewildered, wondering where in the world he's ended up. Kuki then looks up at Kuki, confused about why he's a giant or why he's suddenly so tiny. Overcome with joy, Kuki scoops him up in a massive hug, much to the tiny man's annoyance. Sometime later, Momo is absolutely ecstatic about this whole development, of course. She holds the tiny Kuki up like a trophy, gushing over how unbelievably cute he is. He's not having it, yelling from her head that he's still her senior doll body or not. This resurrected Kuki crosses his tiny arms, clearly unimpressed with his current predicament. From his new perch, he reflects on how these two rookies were hiding some seriously heavy secrets. Between Ashiya and the Archmage, he realizes the world has been rotting from the inside for a while. Kuki then lays out their new mission. They have to defeat thousands of monsters on Ashiya's level. And on top of that, there are probably countless other factions all aiming for the end of the world. Momo, with a tiny Kuki as a hair accessory, declares she needs to polish her skills to be more useful, which gets Kuki wondering where she even learned that high-level healing magic to begin with. She happily starts to explain the whole story, revealing she ran into a hooded girl named Saeki while getting crepes, and they totally hit it off. Turns out, this new friend helped her train her basic fireball skill, unlocking its true potential, which is symbolized by a fiery phoenix. Saeki bluntly told her she was using her power completely wrong, much to Momo's confusion. To prove her point, Saeki unleashes her own unique blue flames, explaining they have the power to reveal the hidden nature of other people's abilities. She then reveals Momo's fireball is actually a phoenix fireball, a skill meant for healing, not hurting, and Momo's reaction is exactly the level of mind-blown you'd expect. After that bombshell, she trained relentlessly to get the hang of it, which is how she finally mastered the healing magic she used to save Kuki. Kuki is still stumped since he copied Fireball but can't replicate her healing version at all. From his perch, Tiny Kuki explains it's likely a reverse skill, a rare phenomenon. He elaborates that skills have two sides, a lucky and unlucky version, that only appear with extended use. Just like Momo's attack became a heal, his own absolute barrier can reverse into a devastating offensive power. This gears in Kuki's head start turning. If their skills have a reverse side, his must too. At that exact moment, a terrifying black vortex rips open in the sky above a nearby building. Kuki is hit with a sudden vision, seeing two ominous men looking down from inside the abyss. In it, he sees those two guys standing over his sister's unconscious body, and he snaps back to reality, screaming her name as Momo wonders what's wrong. Kuki stares at his hand, the crest glowing with a new terrifying purpose. It's a future sight skill, and that grim vision is about to become reality. Without a second to waste, he takes off running, leaving everyone else in the dust. His mind is racing with one thought. His big sister is in serious trouble, and if he doesn't get there in time, that future is set in stone. Meanwhile, the two mystery men from his vision descend from the portal onto a hospital. One of them, Roku, is practically bouncing off the walls, begging for a fight, but his pink-haired partner just tells him to chill out, since they have work to do. Their target is a woman sleeping in a hospital bed, Kuki's sister. They phase right through the window, floating over her like a couple of creeps. This leader lands without making a sound, announcing he's here to pick up someone named Miki. He scoops her up and they head back to the portal, complaining about this boring gig. But just as they're about to leave, the leader freezes, sensing an unwelcome guest. Because Kuki is already there, floating in midair to block their escape route. He immediately binds two skills, combining gravity manipulation with his fireball, unleashing a brand new attack called Meteor Shower that rains down hell from above. But Roku just smirks, stopping a meteor with one finger and telling him to hold on. This meteors slam into the rooftop, but the two kidnappers are completely unfazed by the attack, leaving Kuki to stare them down as his friends watch in horror from the ground. This pink-haired leader just casually asks what's wrong, holding Kuki's sister like a trophy. Fueled by pure rage, Kuki roars at them to give his big sister back right now. Her captor just smirks, commenting that Kuki arrived so quickly, it's almost like he foresaw this happening. Kuki floats opposite them, demanding to know who the hell they are and what they want. Turns out they know his sister Miki is the one who used some kind of regression magic, and the leader puts two and two together, realizing Koki must be the one who defeated Ashia. Kuki presses them for answers, accusing them of being another one of Ashia's doomsday factions. But Roku just scoffs at the insult, calling Ashia a pathetic loser they'd never work with. Done with the Q&A, Kuki lunges forward, determined to take his sister back by force. This leader simply holds her tighter, explaining she's an important key for their plans. And with a simple snap of his fingers, he decides to add a little chaos to the situation, summoning a whole legion of horrifying monsters from the massive portal in the sky. Down below, Momo and Kuki can only watch as the city is suddenly flooded with demons. Even tiny Kuki is losing his mind. A portal was bad enough, but a full-scale invasion is unheard of. These aren't just your average grunts either, as every single one radiates an S-rank aura or higher. Kuki realizes these two are definitely connected to the end of the world he's been fighting against. This sheer scale of the invasion confirms this is the beginning of the apocalypse they all feared. Elsewhere, the city's defenses are already crumbling as other heroes are overwhelmed by the sudden onslaught. Kuki, radiating pure fury, swears he'll never forgive them if they hurt his sister. But the leader just smirks, dropping the casual bombshell that Miki isn't his sister at all. That little revelation completely short-circuits Kuki's brain, leaving him speechless. He then clarifies that Miki is actually one of their comrades, which only confuses Kuki more. Turns out, her real job is to destroy the entire world, a classic career choice for a sibling. Kuki is just not equipped to handle this level of plot twist right now, and Roku finds the whole playing siblings act absolutely hilarious, losing his mind laughing. Done with the mind games, Kuki's rage boils over as he tells them to cut the crap. His mind flashes back to a time when she was just his big sister, helping him study. And that memory fuels his resolve, his eyes glowing as he prepares to unleash his full power. He summons every single skill he's ever copied, a whole arsenal of abilities swirling around him. But he zeroes in on one in particular, the Mud Puppet skill, now radiating a dark, twisted energy. He then channels that power into a brand new attack. Extreme Black Light, aiming it right at Roku. A massive column of dark energy erupts from his hand, blasting straight towards the laughing goon. This attack hits its mark, completely engulfing Roku in the blinding, chaotic light, forcing Momo and tiny Kuki to shield their eyes from the sheer intensity of the blast. As the smoke and dust begin to settle from his all-out attack, Kuki watches intently, waiting to see if he actually managed to land a hit. But Roku just casually strolls out of the aftermath without a single scratch on him. Kuki can't believe it. His ultimate move did absolutely nothing to the guy. Roku just cackles, flexing a black crest on his hand that looks disturbingly familiar. And Kuki realizes this clown is also a user of ancient magic, which explains the zero damage tank. This guy is getting way too excited, claiming his hands are tingling for a good fight, and he decides he's going to play with Kuki, much to his leader's annoyance. But the recoil from that all-out attack finally catches up, and Kuki's body seizes in agony. Down below, Momo can only scream his name, knowing he's pushed himself way past his limits. With their opponent conveniently paralyzed, the two villains decide it's time for a tactical retreat. This leader gives a smug little farewell, promising they'll meet again as they fly off with Miki. As the portal closes, Kuki's consciousness finally fades, and he starts plummeting from the sky. He's completely out cold, free-falling towards the rooftop as Momo watches in horror. Even as he falls, the crest on his hand begins to glow with a faint white light, and his last thought before everything goes dark is of his big sister. This crest continues to pulse as he desperately calls out for her in his mind. His mind flashes back to a simpler time when she was just his sister, encouraging him to study. But that memory warps into a nightmare, her kind smile twisting into a demonic, bloodthirsty grin. Kuki then jolts awake with a gasp, finding himself in a hospital bed. He's completely disoriented, looking over to see Momo sitting right beside him. She explains he collapsed after the fight, and she had to use emergency healing to stabilize him. Suddenly, it all comes rushing back. The kidnappers, the lies, and the fact his sister is still gone. He tries to force himself up, determined to go save her, but his body just won't move. Momo physically holds him down, flatly refusing to let him fight in his battered state. And she's terrified that using that ultimate skill again will completely destroy his body. Tiny Kuki chimes in with a dose of reality. That desperate attack didn't even work on them. But Kuki is spiraling, convinced that if he doesn't do something, his sister is done for. Kuki then connects the dots for him. If he can't save the world, he can't save her either. This little guy's advice is to stop rushing and actually learn about his own skills first. He reminds Kuki of the nasty recoil from using his power recklessly, and if he can't find a way to boost his ability safely, getting Miki back is impossible. That logic finally seems to get through to Kuki, who mulls over the idea of a new strategy. Momo suddenly gets an idea, realizing she knows the perfect person to help him out. Elsewhere, a woman with long purple hair bursts into an office, looking for someone. She's interrupting a meeting between a stern-looking older man and a younger blue-haired official. This woman volunteers for a duty, saying it's her job to invite someone to the licensed mage exam. This blue-haired man, Sage, just leans forward and tells her to do as she pleases. As Sage walks out, the older man watches him go with a very unsettling look on his face, thinking to himself how much he despises cocky brats who don't respect their elders. His internal monologue gets even darker, vowing to kill this upstart right here and now. Outside, Sage strolls down the hall as a sinister energy begins to crackle around his fist. He glances down at his hand, now glowing with a menacing red and black aura. Back at the hospital, Momo excitedly asks her friend to analyze Koki's skills just like she did for her. Momo's friend, Irori, is clearly not thrilled about being interrupted while she was relaxing. But she's a simple woman. She'll do the analysis for the low price of one crepe. Momo is so grateful she practically tackles her in a hug, much to Irori's surprise. Kuki just watches from the side, noting that Irori must be pretty close with Momo to agree to this. With the deal struck, Irori gets to work, summoning a blue flame to begin analyzing his skills. But the flame reacts violently, revealing a chaotic black energy that shocks her to her core. She can't see a thing, telling Koki his power is just a void of pure darkness. This official diagnosis comes back as unknown, as a sinister aura erupts around our boy. Since her analysis failed, Momo tells Koki he'll just have to find the answers himself. So Irori switches tactics, summoning a green flame for a different kind of deep dive. This particular flame is designed to send whoever looks at it into their own mental world. She basically tells him to go on a spirit quest to figure out what his deal is. A massive wave of green energy washes over everything, sending him on his way. Kuki's eyes snap open, finding himself transported to a completely different place. He's standing in what looks like a library, but something feels incredibly off. On the floor, he spots a man with white hair, completely passed out. He recognizes the guy as the librarian, but then notices another person standing over him. This mysterious stranger asks if Kuki is here to finally learn about his own skill, and in a wild twist, the guy reveals he's actually the old Kuki, specifically the version of himself from before he had any powers or skills at all. Kuki is completely floored, realizing he's talking to his powerless middle school self, who congratulates him on finally awakening such an amazing skill. Nearby, the librarian is on the floor, seemingly crushed by the sheer presence of this power. And the poor guy can't even handle the pressure, collapsing under the weight of it all. This younger Kuki then drops a bombshell, revealing his true skill isn't copy, it's create. Turns out he's wielding the very first ancient magic ever born into their world, a revelation that leaves our boy completely speechless. His past self explains this magic literally gives form to his desires, shaping skills based on his feelings. This copy ability was just step one, a way to gather materials for his real power. So now the big question is, what does Kuki actually want to create? This voice echoes in his mind, asking what he wants to become and what magic he truly desires. His younger self calls him out, reminding him he's always envied everyone else's abilities. A flashback confirms his deepest wish was to take everyone's skills and become the strongest mage. Kuki tries to deny it, but his past self cuts right to the chase. He needs to be strong, because otherwise he has absolutely no chance of saving his sister. With that truth laid bare, his younger self confirms he has the power to surpass everyone. And just like that, a second skill awakens within him, the Vanta Black Eyes. This entire library warps around him, every book now glowing with a sinister red light. His past self is losing it, cackling that Kuki is no longer a powerless failure. Because now, every skill, every book, everything in this world is his magic to command. His past self gloats that this dark, chaotic magic is Kuki's true power. Back in the real world, a few minutes earlier, Irori was just starting her psychic deep dive on him, and Kuki groans as the green flame magic takes hold, sending him on his little spirit quest. Momo and tiny Kuki can only watch, hoping he figures himself out without breaking his brain. But their quiet moment is shattered by a massive explosion of yellow energy right next to them. An absolute barrier slams into existence, sending tiny Kuki flying back from the impact. This is courtesy of the old official from the meeting, who just planted his hand on the ground. Tiny Kuki gets absolutely launched into the air by the sheer force of the spell, while the white-haired official smirks, complimenting the old man on being as tough as ever. Momo and Irori are stunned, recognizing the high-level incantation magic immediately. But the white-haired goon isn't here to trade compliments, calling the old man pathetic for protecting our boy. Tiny Kuki gets right in his face, demanding to know what he wants, and the guy says he's here to detain Kuki. He then gives a totally reassuring grin, promising to apologize if he accidentally kills him in the process. This old man, Kyuki, orders someone named Suzaki to protect Kuki at all costs. Before anyone can react, the white-haired official just vanishes into thin air, only to reappear instantly with a lightning-fast punch straight to tiny Kyuki's face. This little guy is completely overwhelmed, unable to even see his opponent's movements. Turns out this dude's skill is lightning speed, which is exactly as advertised. He lands another brutal hit, declaring that Tiny Kyuki is no match for him in this form. But even beaten down, Tiny Kyuki refuses to give up, vowing to protect the kid who saved his life. Back in the real world, Kuki's eyes snap open, his spirit quest having unlocked something dangerous. He's suddenly floating in the air, surrounded by a swirling vortex of black magic. Momo and Irori can only stare in shock, realizing he's awake and very different. With a deadpan expression, our boy announces the awakening of his second skill. This extreme black eyes, which immediately starts warping the very air around him. Both Momo and Irori collapse to their knees, feeling their own magic being drained away. This old man realizes this new power indiscriminately copies the skills of everyone nearby, and to make matters worse, it's also absorbing their raw magic power like a sponge. Even Tiny Kyuki is on the ground, completely weakened by this insane area of effect drain. This effect is so massive that even civilians in the city are starting to collapse from the power loss. Tiny Kyuki screams at him, demanding to know why he's stealing everyone's magic. Kuki just looks down, coldly admitting that he knows exactly what he's doing. His mind is set, he can't save his sister unless he's the single most powerful person alive. So he's decided to take everyone's skills and magic to become the strongest, no matter the cost. Momo desperately begs him to stop, seeing her friend go down a very dark path. Meanwhile, the white-haired official smirks, calling Kuki far too dangerous to be left alone. He decides there's no choice but to eliminate our boy and pulls out a pack of pills. Turns out it's an S-rank item that temporarily boosts magic power by over 100 times. And his eyes immediately start glowing with an overwhelming yellow aura. Fully juiced up, he launches himself forward, ready to end this with a single devastating punch. But his super-powered punch smashes into a golden barrier that materializes right in front of Kuki. Our boy just smirks, calling the official a fake savior while using a newly copied bind skill. Turns out Kuki just copied the old man's multi-elemental magic to create that absolute defense. And that copied magic then detonates, launching the stunned official backward with explosive force. This guy is absolutely stunned, unable to process how his S-rank power-up just got no-celled. Kuki then unleashes his first created skill, a sinister beam called Extreme Black Light. That beam of pure darkness slams into the official, who screams as his body starts to dissolve. Tiny Kyuki is horrified, realizing our boy is using this insane power without any of the usual recoil. Irori quickly figures it out. He's using the massive pool of stolen magic to completely negate the backlash. Momo looks on heartbroken, asking Koki if this dark path is really his answer. She pleads with him, insisting that becoming strong by hurting everyone just isn't like him. For a moment, Koki just stares back, his expression completely unreadable, but Tiny Kyuki tells her it's useless. Her words aren't reaching him in this state. Ignoring them, Kuki focuses inward, deciding to track his sister using the magic she once gave him. Closing his eyes, he focuses on that faint connection, sensing a clear path to her location. And with a manic grin, his eyes snap open. He can see the way to her. He reaches into a swirling vortex of dark energy, declaring that he's coming for his sister. This others watch in shock as he tears open a portal, and Tiny Kyuki says they have to follow. But Kuki just glances back, coldly telling them he doesn't need them. They're just in the way. That cold dismissal leaves Momo absolutely shattered, unable to believe what he's become. Kuki dives into the dark portal, leaving a horrified Momo screaming that he can't go. She's absolutely not having any of this, vowing she won't let him do this alone. With a desperate cry, she throws herself towards the vortex, refusing to be left behind. Tiny Kyuki, not one to miss out on the action, leaps in right after her, leaving Irori to stare at the old man, completely stunned by the sudden mass exodus. This old Kyuki just stands there, his expression hardening with grim resolve. Meanwhile, in some ruined throne room, two men stand over an unconscious woman on an altar. This blonde one smirks, revealing their captive was the one who used regression magic. His silver-haired partner adds that she also stole the Book of Regression before they caught her, and the troublesome girl in question is none other than Kuki's sister Miki. They plan to use the magic left in her body to complete their ritual anyway, but the silver-haired guy suddenly senses an unwelcome presence, cutting the villain monologue short. Right on cue, a dark portal tears open above them, and Kuki makes his grand entrance. Unfortunately, Momo and Tiny Kyuki come tumbling out right behind him, begging him to listen. This portal snaps shut, trapping them all in this new, very hostile location. This blonde villain is absolutely thrilled, grinning that Kuki is far more than he expected. Kuki, however, just gives him a dead-eyed stare, completely unimpressed. This only hypes the guy up more as he powers up, ready for the fight he's been waiting for. And he launches forward with a fist crackling with dark red energy, aiming straight for Kuki's face. This punch lands with a brutal impact, sending a shockwave right through our boy's head. Turns out the blonde villain's skill is space transcendence, letting him teleport his punches from anywhere, and he unleashes a flurry of them, declaring that dodging is completely impossible for Kuki, who gets absolutely hammered by the onslaught as the villain mocks him for being too slow. But the villain's smug grin vanishes in an instant, realizing something is very, very wrong. Because despite the brutal beatdown, Kuki hasn't even flinched, just staring back with empty eyes. With a cold glare, he snatches one of the fists midair, demanding they give back his sister. And just like before, Kuki unleashes that extreme black light right at his opponent, a blast that slams into the villain, who realizes Kuki is somehow even stronger than moments ago. Kuki calmly gathers a sphere of pure energy, swirling with that same dark magic, then launches the orb straight down at the now reeling villain, which transforms into a massive dark energy fist ready to pulverize him from above. That fist connects with brutal force, driving the guy straight into the throne room floor, and the impact is devastating, sending a shockwave through the entire chamber. Kuki just keeps hammering him, not giving him a single moment to recover from the beatdown. Completely floored, the villain can't understand how Kuki mastered a power that nearly killed him before. Our boy doesn't even bother to answer, his expression as cold and merciless as ever. Instead, dark tendrils of magic begin to snake across the floor from his body, reaching towards Momo and tiny Kuki, who are both looking incredibly drained. And the villain finally gets it. Kuki is siphoning magic from his own friends to fuel his rampage. But Momo, instead of being terrified, just cracks her knuckles with a grin, calling it awesome. Momo's tough act crumbles in an instant, her face filled with worry for Kuki, who continues to relentlessly hammer the blonde villain into the throne room floor, leaving the guy a bloody, gasping mess, completely overwhelmed by the assault. Kuki demands his sister's location, but the villain just reveals she's now part of their group, Mobius, a name that gets a reaction from tiny Kuki, as the villain explains they protect another world's order. He reveals they're the Five Warriors, a special team born to uphold that very balance. Momo is completely floored by this sudden, out-of-now-here interdimensional plot twist, and the silver-haired partner adds their job is a magic-eating ritual, which is why they needed Miki. Tiny Kuki finally gets it. These guys are the ones orchestrating the end of the world. But Kuki has absolutely no time for this villainous exposition, bluntly stating he doesn't care, and gives the villain a 5-second countdown to talk or face total elimination. This countdown ticks away with menacing finality, his hand raised to strike. But at the last second, Momo grabs his arm, stopping him from delivering the final blow, and he turns to her, completely stunned and irritated by her interference. Momo furiously yells at him that he can't just dismiss everything that's happening, reminding him that his original mission was to protect the world, not just bulldoze through it. His thoughts, however, drift to his sister, the source of his power and his only motivation. He just smirks, thinking to himself that Momo's skill isn't so worthless after all, a perfect source of fuel. This cold response makes her snap, screaming that this isn't the Kuki she knows at all. And erupting in a pink aura, she declares he's no savior and prepares to face him down herself. Momo's words send him spiraling into a memory, forcing him to recall who he wanted to be, where he's a kid again, and his sister is asking him what kind of power he truly desires. His answer is simple enough, he wants the absolute strongest skill there is, but she presses him, asking what he would even do with that kind of strength. And his childhood goal was pure. He just wanted to protect his big sister. She smiles, telling him that's a good start, but it's not the whole picture, because true strength means having the will to protect absolutely everyone. She had total faith that he would grow up to be a great and noble mage. This mirrors Momozo's own core memory of a hero teaching her to help anyone in need, a lesson about using power, not for yourself, but for the good of others. Inspired, young Kuki asks if he too could become a real savior one day, and his sister just pats his head, her expression full of unwavering belief, assuring him he absolutely could, as long as he never gave up on that noble dream. Back in the present, that memory shatters Kuki's dark resolve, leaving him conflicted. He's then hit with a vision of his grim future, impaling Momo with his dark magic. In this scenario, the villain feels his own power drain but sees the perfect opening to attack. He unleashes a brutal flurry of blows while Kuki is completely distracted by his own darkness. This vision ends with our boy utterly defeated, lying broken on the throne room floor. His own conscience appears before him, asking if this disastrous path is really the answer. This darkness tempts him to steal more, but Kuki finally rejects it, realizing he's been wrong. Snapping out of his dark trance, Kuki is left completely bewildered by his own change of heart. He admits he was always driven by jealousy, desperately wanting to be stronger than anyone else. But his real dream was simply to become a mage his sister could be proud of. He wanted to be a hero just like her, someone who fights for the sake of others. A mage who protects his comrades and the people who truly matter to him. With a surge of clarity, he realizes he can't face his sister unless he becomes that person. Remembering the vow he made to protect this world and finally become its savior. This sudden, overwhelming epiphany hits him like a truck, flooding his senses with pure light. And in that moment, he stands transformed, bathed in a holy, unwavering aura. A mysterious woman with silver blue hair appears before him in this mental space, explaining that his creation skill has finally evolved in response to his true feelings. Kuki is engulfed in a pillar of brilliant blue light, finally understanding his own power. She presents him with a book, telling him this is the world's very first skill, and he gets to name it. Back in reality, Kuki stands tall, the sinister dark magic completely gone from his body. Momo looks up from the rubble, sensing the incredible shift in his presence. This blonde villain just stares, completely baffled by this sudden protagonist power-up. Kuki closes his eyes, focusing all his newfound resolve into a single name. And with glowing blue eyes, he unleashes his true skill, Light of Salvation. But the villain can't feel an ounce of magic from him, assuming this is all just a desperate bluff. Kuki confirms his magic is at 0, and the villain smirks, thinking our boy is just out of gas. This blonde villain is absolutely furious, vowing to kill Kuki and his friends with everything he's got. But Kuki just floats there, erupting in a brilliant blue aura that leaves the guy speechless. He explains this is the Savior's magic, a power that only activates when he's protecting someone, and with his friends on the line, his magic power is now effectively limitless. This villain scoffs at the idea of infinite magic, calling it stupid as he prepares another attack. He unleashes another flurry of his teleporting punches, but they just phase right through Kuki, leaving the guy completely baffled, since his undodgeable attacks are suddenly doing nothing. Kuki calmly states that he completely understands the villain's skill now, revealing that once his eyes see an ability, he can copy it, making him immune to it forever. Genji calls him a cheater, which is pretty rich, right before Kuki gets right in his face. With a single touch to the forehead, Kuki unleashes a wave of holy energy, taking him out instantly. This silver-haired partner can't believe what he's just seen from across the room. He spots a strange white crest on Kuki's hand, a type of magic he's never encountered before, and Kuki confirms this is the light attribute, a power that belongs only to him. He then gathers all that energy to unleash his very first one-of-a-kind skill, blasting the downed villain with an attack he calls pure white light, which leaves the guy completely unconscious on the throne room floor, utterly defeated. From across the ruined chamber, the silver-haired partner watches the whole thing unfold, his expression shifting to one of pure, unadulterated shock at his partner's swift defeat. He sees Kuki helping Momo up, finally processing that Genji was just completely neutralized. Meanwhile, another member of this interdimensional welcoming committee chimes in, calling her partner's defeat lame, and her buddy, a literal skeleton in a military uniform, asks if it's time to just end our boy. But she decides things are taking too long, just as we see Kuki's sister, completely unconscious. Back in the throne room, Momo tackles Kuki in a hug, just thrilled he's not a dark edgelord anymore. And while she's amazed at his new power, he tells her it's all thanks to her and Tiny Kuki. He genuinely thanks her for snapping him out of it and reminding him what really matters. To which Momo just beams, telling him that's what comrades are for, of course. This hits our boy right in the feels, and he's actually crying with gratitude and relief. But the moment is cut short. Kuki senses his sister's magic nearby, and it's fading fast. Tiny Kuki immediately panics, realizing that means she's in some very serious trouble. So Kuki tells them to get back to their own world while he goes on ahead to save her. But two new members of Mobius suddenly appear, blocking his path with some ominous red magic. This blindfolded girl, Roku, is casually taking a picture of her defeated teammate. Priorities, you know. Tiny Kuki, all nerve, demands to know who the hell they are. And the skeleton, Hubie, gives the classic villain response. You don't need to know, you're dead. Kuki realizes their magic is on a whole other level as they declare he can't stop the ritual. Roku flashes a seriously creepy grin, asking if he'd mind just dying for their cause. But Kuki isn't fazed in the slightest, the light crest on his hand flaring up with power, and he unleashes an absolute barrier, trapping the two of them inside a massive cube of light. With the new arrivals temporarily contained, his friends tell him to go on ahead and save his sister. Kuki hesitates for a split second, clearly worried about leaving them to fight, but Momo screams at him to get moving and save his sister already. He gives her a heartfelt thanks, knowing he has to trust them. This portal Tiny Kuki opened is only stable for a few more seconds, which is more than enough time for our boy to make his dramatic exit. Inside the barrier, the two villains swear they won't let him get away, launching a massive attack to try and stop him mid-flight, but Roku realizes their real opponents are the two left behind. Hubie finds their loyalty just plain annoying, mocking them for even trying to match their power. Tiny Kuki admits that before, they would have been completely outmatched, but now he and Momo are feeling a massive surge of new energy. Turns out Kuki's Light of Salvation has a pretty wild side effect, earning him the title of the Giver for a very good reason. He can share his infinite magic with anyone whose skills he's copied, which means his two comrades are now rocking a serious power-up. Meanwhile, Kuki zips through the destroyed fortress, getting closer to his sister. His path is suddenly blocked by a massive, snarling red beast. He immediately recognizes the magic as belonging to a Thorn user, and his skill amps up any copied ability with the light attribute, making it even stronger. But as he prepares to fight, he realizes something is very wrong with this monster. He can feel his sister's magic, but it's like she's behind an unbreakable wall, and he knows he has to hurry while his friends hold the line against these two psychos. Momo and Tiny Kuki are drawing all the heat, buying him precious seconds to get going. Roku, ever the charmer, asks her skeleton buddy which one of them they should take out first. But it's not a 2-on-2 anymore. A third fighter suddenly teleports in, crackling with power. Tiny Kuki is completely floored, demanding to know what this guy is even doing here. This newcomer, Sage, explains that he's been tracking something for a while now, ever since that massive dimensional hole ripped open in the sky over the city. He was right there on the ground when it happened, sensing the disturbance immediately, and he's been dealing with some nasty dark magic clinging to his arm ever since. He quickly figured out that deep inside that alternate world was the very person who cursed him in the first place. Momo can't believe it. This guy's been cursed this whole time. Roku just gives them the most unhinged grin, confirming she's the culprit. Then she summons her pet project, an SSS-rank phantom beast with a smile only a mother could love. She stands there all smug, wrapped in her sinister red aura, looking way too proud of herself. And just as the beast appears, Sage clutches his chest, the curse flaring up. Roku introduces her bestie, the source of the strongest curse, and asks why he thinks she targeted him. Turns out, she saw the future, a world completely overrun by monsters in 5 years, which Tiny Kyuki correctly interprets as the literal end of the world. Roku explains that in her vision of the future, there was one major problem in their world. And that problem, she says, pointing right at him, was Sage. She admits they usually don't meddle, but he was just too dangerous, so she slowly cursed him, ensuring that when the apocalypse hit, he'd be too weak to fight back effectively. Momo is just speechless, trying to process this level of long-term evil scheming. Tiny Kyuki finally understands the full scope of their plan to neutralize Earth's strongest fighters. As if on cue, Sage coughs up blood, the curse flaring up now that its master is nearby. But Tiny Kyuki steps in, telling Sage to fall back for a moment. He slams his hands on the ground, erecting a massive absolute barrier around them all, trapping everyone inside a coliseum that won't disappear until one side is completely defeated. Roku just smirks, realizing he's forcing them into separate one-on-one battles. Tiny Kyuki apologizes, admitting that even with Kuki's power boost, he and Momo would have a hard time taking on both of these monsters at once. So he's entrusting Sage to handle the skeleton all by himself. Kyubi accepts the challenge, drawing his katana with a sinister red glow. This two swordsmen immediately clash, blue lightning meeting crimson energy. Their blades grind against each other in a massive explosion of power. Sage holds his ground, pushing back against the skeletal warrior's immense strength. Kyubi is actually impressed, complimenting Sage's skill despite the debilitating curse. Out of respect, he warns him that his sword is an ancient magic-killing weapon. Kyubi warns him that his magic-killing sword is an instant death sentence for anyone it touches. Over on the other side of the arena, Roku activates her own brand of ancient magic, summoning her pet project, a horrifying cursed-eye beast, to face Momo and Tiny Kyuki. Its main trick is a nasty curse that slowly destroys anyone who looks into its eye, which immediately catches Momo, wrapping her in agonizing tendrils of dark energy. Roku is just loving the view, telling them to quit struggling and die with some dignity. But Tiny Kyuki just scoffs, completely unfazed by the whole ordeal. Roku is stunned the curse isn't working, but he explains it's because he has no flesh. His body is just a mud puppet, he says, basically the same tech as her ugly monster. He asks Momo if she can still go, and she grits her teeth, confirming she's still in the fight. With a surge of new power, she summons a massive healing phoenix to purge the curse. Roku is completely speechless. Momo just straight up canceled her ultimate curse. Turns out she couldn't heal others before, but Kuki's power-up gave her the ability. Finding this all way too interesting, Roku decides if curses fail, brute force is next. She boasts that her monster is 3 times stronger than Momo anyway, so good luck. Not intimidated in the slightest, Tiny Kyuki tells Momo to get ready for a full power assault. Momo focuses all her energy, determined to finally be useful to Kuki in a real fight. But Tiny Kyuki steps up, telling her to leave it to him since a man keeps his word. They both unleash their signature moves, a flaming cyclone and a barrier-shattering earth attack, which combine into a single, massive explosion that engulfs their opponent. This dust settles from their absolutely devastating combined attack, leaving Momo and Tiny Kyuki standing victorious over the smoking crater where the beast used to be. Over on the other side, Kyubi casually notes that his partner's little pet project has been deleted. Having used up all his borrowed power, Tiny Kyuki asks Sage to handle the rest, and Sage thanks him, feeling a surge of light he hasn't experienced in a long time. Tiny Kyuki tells him to show this bag of bones the true power of humanity's strongest fighter. With that, Sagi's entire body erupts in a storm of brilliant blue lightning. Kyubi, looking bored, decides to even the odds by summoning a few more grotesque minions. Momo is completely floored, wondering if this skeleton is some kind of monster himself. But Sagi isn't wasting a second, immediately activating his signature skill. He unleashes absolute water temperature, simultaneously freezing and boiling the very air around him. Momo can only stare in absolute awe at the sheer scale of his power. Tiny Kyuki explains his ability lets him troll moisture from absolute zero to scorching hot. Kyubi acknowledges it's a terrifying skill since moisture exists in every living being, but then he points out the obvious flaw: he's a skeleton with absolutely no moisture to control. He lunges forward and their blades meet in another cataclysmic explosion of energy. Kyubi taunts him, saying his little parlor trick is useless and he'll just cut him down. These two warriors exchange a blinding flurry of blows, red and blue light tearing the arena apart. Even Kyubi is impressed, admitting the title Humanity's Strongest isn't just for show, but he follows it up by saying a human is still just a human in the end, preparing a final strike. Kyubi unleashes a devastating slash, but Sage dodges it with inches to spare. This skeleton reminds him that his sword is an instant-kill weapon, even a scratch is fatal. He confidently promises that the next time, he absolutely will not miss. Sage just cracks a smile, deciding it's finally time to get serious too. Kyubi scoffs that his moisture skill is useless, but Sage points out a critical flaw in his logic, because while the skeleton might be dry, Sage himself is very much not. His entire aura shifts from cool blue lightning to a raging, fiery inferno as he unleashes a completely new and frankly terrifying power-up. Kyubi's jaw would drop if he had one, realizing the horrifying truth of this new skill. Sage is literally boiling his own blood to overclock his body. This triples his circulation and power, though he admits it's a very temporary boost. With no time to waste, he blitzes forward to end the fight quickly. Kyubi is completely caught off guard, barely managing to block the insane new speed. He can't even track the sword's path anymore, the attacks are just that fast. Sage presses his advantage, unleashing a furious barrage of strikes on the skeletal warrior. This villain is forced onto the back foot, admitting he can barely defend himself. From the sidelines, Momo and Tiny Kyuki can't see a thing, just a blur of red and white light. Even in this desperate situation, Yubi can't help but admire the sheer skill on display, calling this beautiful deadly onslaught a true sword dance. And Sage, burning from the inside out, is more than happy to continue the performance. In a flash of red and white, Yubi's skull goes flying from the sheer force of the blow, and Sage's final desperate strike sends the skeleton's magic-killing sword spinning into the air. Even as his head is literally detached, Yubi can't help but call the attack magnificent, and with that, the skeletal warrior's body collapses, leaving Sage standing over the remains. This blood-boiling technique fades, leaving him completely drained from the insane exertion. Momo can only stare, finally witnessing the full terrifying power of humanity's #1 fighter. Even Tiny Kyuki has to admit that the performance was nothing short of impressive. He asks Momo if she can move, but she's still too weak from the last battle. Just then, the absolute barrier shatters and Roku's remaining monsters swarm the arena, but Sage, despite his exhaustion, summons a massive ice beast to protect his allies. He thanks them for breaking his curse, telling them to rest while he handles this. Tiny Kyuki is a little thrown off, noting this sudden selflessness is very out of character. Meanwhile, Kuki is floating in a strange, shattered dimension, trying to find his way. He's surrounded by his own power, but he can't shake the feeling that something is still wrong, because the closer he tries to get to his sister's energy, the farther away it feels. He quickly realizes he's been trapped in some kind of spatial skill, a literal maze. Having zero patience for puzzles, Kuki decides to just destroy the entire thing with brute force. His whiteout attack shatters the illusionary walls like glass, breaking him free, and with the trap broken, his eyes lock onto his target with grim determination. He's finally found her, his sister, unconscious in a pod with a mysterious man watching over her. Kuki finally reaches the main chamber, finding his sister lying unconscious on a stone altar. This white-haired man welcomes him with a smug grin, saying the ritual is almost done anyway. Absolutely furious, Kuki powers up and demands they give his sister back immediately. He's completely lost his cool, his eyes wide with pure unadulterated rage, unleashing a massive beam of pure white light straight at the smug villain. But the guy just smirks, his own sinister red aura flaring to life. He casually deflects the full power blast with a single hand, no effort at all. Kuki can only watch in disbelief as his ultimate attack is just stopped. This beam fizzles out completely against the villain's dark energy. Now on his knees, Kuki is told to calm down by the very man holding his sister hostage. He demands to know what this ritual is and what they're doing to Miki. This villain then drops a bombshell, correcting him that she's not his sister. She's actually their little sister, he claims with a deeply unsettling smile. Kuki is just completely floored, unable to process what he's just heard. Just then, a familiar voice calls out his name, snapping him out of his confusion. It's Miki, speaking to him telepathically from the altar. Even the villain seems surprised, noting she's still conscious despite being asleep. She thanks Kuki for coming and apologizes for all the confusion. Miki then confirms Roku's story was true. She's a member of the group called Mobius. Turns out they're 5 warriors from different dimensions, all gathered by some mysterious mage. Miki explains that among these interdimensional warriors, she was the youngest of the bunch, and their job was to maintain this alternate dimension where all the monsters lived, while also sending those creatures out to other worlds to support a grand invasion. But even back then, she started having some serious doubts about the whole operation, questioning whether destroying entire dimensions was really a good thing to do. Hearing the constant screams coming from the dimensional portals pretty much sealed the deal for her. So one day, she finally got the courage to voice her concerns to the rest of the group. This white-haired guy just tells her to stop thinking such unnecessary thoughts, a real supportive leader. But Miki stands her ground, declaring she won't be a part of any more invasions, which earns her a swift rebuke from another member, telling her to shut up and do her job. This whole crew surrounds her, reminding her they have a mission from that person. And abandoning it, the leader says with a creepy smile, is absolutely unforgivable. Faced with that kind of friendly peer pressure, Miki realized she had only one option left. She made a run for it, deciding to ditch the whole destroying world's career path. Her plan was to escape to another dimension and just try to live a normal, peaceful life. Just in case, she grabbed the Book of Regression to take with her as a good luck charm. And with that, she left her old dimension behind, landing in a completely new world. Dazed and alone, she looked up to see someone had already found her. A kind woman who would eventually become her new mom, who took her in, gave her a home, and raised her as her own daughter. Miki explains how she finally found a real family, starting with the woman who became her mother, who raised her with all the love she'd never had before, treating her like her own child. And then, something incredible happened that changed her life all over again. A little brother was born into the family, and the day Kuki arrived, Miki was there, finally getting the sibling she always wanted. She was absolutely overjoyed, because having a real family was her deepest wish. This was a stark contrast to her old family, who were just a bunch of world-ending colleagues. With Kuki and her mom, she finally had a real home bound by actual love. Every single day she spent with her little brother was a precious gift, and she cherished all the simple, happy moments they shared together, watching him grow up from a toddler into a young boy. She thanks Kuki for all the happiness he brought into her life, for giving her a reason to smile and a place to truly belong. Even as a kid, Kuki was her source of light. Back in the present, Kuki is completely overwhelmed, tears streaming down his face. Miki tells him he's grown so much, but he has to run away now, because Roku, the white-haired leader, is far too powerful for him to handle. But Kuki refuses, shouting that he could never abandon her like that, because she was the one who taught him to be strong in the first place. Her voice echoes in his mind, telling him not to give up, that he can surely succeed. Fueled by his sister's story, Kuki swears he's going to take her home no matter what. His power absolutely erupts, a brilliant column of pure white energy lighting up the chamber. Roku just scoffs, telling the outsider to stay out of what is clearly a family matter. So Kuki tries the only thing he knows how to do, unleashing another massive beam of light, and once again, Roku's dark energy casually swats the attack aside like it's nothing, leaving Kuki on the floor, realizing he also has to be careful not to hit Miki in the crossfire. He tries a new angle, teleporting behind Roku for a surprise attack from above. Unfortunately for him, the result is exactly the same, with the beam getting deflected instantly. Kuki is getting desperate because no matter what he throws, it just gets bounced right back. Roku decides it's finally his turn, combining gravity and fire to launch a volley of flaming meteors. This fiery projectiles home in on Kuki with terrifying speed and precision, slamming into him and sending him crashing back down to the hard stone floor. This villain smugly points out that even that attack was reflected, asking if he gets it yet. Kuki is completely baffled because he can't copy whatever insane skill Roku is using. Roku gives him a backhanded compliment, admitting he's probably the strongest person on this world, but warns him that every attack will only end up hurting himself instead. He tells Kuki to just give up and stay still, since the ritual is almost finished anyway. But our boy gets back up, demanding to know what this ritual is actually for, and Roku, feeling generous, reveals they're trying to revive the great mage, Zero. Kuki has no idea who that is, so Roku clarifies, Zero is the progenitor mage. Roku explains Zero was the first magic user and the one who founded their little world-ending club, but his existence has since vanished, forcing them to focus on regression magic instead, a forbidden power that grants the user the ability to literally transcend time, and their grand plan is to use it to revive Zero's soul right here in the present day. He then reveals Miki was the one who stole that magic, wondering who she could have used it on. But Roku just smirks, since they can just extract the remaining regression power from Miki anyway, using her as a vessel so the great mage Zero will finally be revived. Kuki, absolutely horrified, demands to know what will happen to his sister after the ritual, and the villain's answer is simple: they'll kill her, because traitors aren't needed. Our boy is completely stunned, realizing he's trapped with no way to win. He has to save his sister, but defeating this monster seems completely impossible, until he suddenly notices a strange crest glowing on Miki's hand. It's his sister's crest, and a wild idea suddenly clicks in his mind. Deciding he has nothing left to lose, Kuki prepares to take a massive gamble, summoning a brand new weapon, the pure white light holy sword. Roku just scoffs at the attempt, reminding him that any attack is completely meaningless. But his smug expression instantly shatters into pure disbelief, because Kuki's holy sword actually pierces right through his reflection ability, landing a direct hit, and the blade goes clean through Roku, shattering the glass altar holding Miki. Stumbling back in shock, Roku can't believe he's actually been wounded. Roku watches in shock as the glass altar shatters from Kuki's direct strike. Staggering back with a nasty wound, he can't believe he actually took damage. Kuki then reveals his trump card. He just came back from the mirror world. Clutching his chest, Roku demands to know when our boy figured out his little trick, and Kuki explains the first clue was Miki's crest being on the wrong hand. He also realized he couldn't copy the deflection because it wasn't a skill at all. It was just a preset trap that Roku had laid out well in advance. This villain had created a pocket dimension that simply bounced everything back, trapping him inside. So the only way out was to find the exit and destroy it, just like the maze. Kuki gambled that the exit would be near Miki, so he aimed right for her. Roku admits he's impressive, but then drops the bad news. The ritual is already complete. At that moment, the entire chamber starts to violently shake, and even the other Mobius members are completely freaking out over what's happening. This whole place is coming down as the ritual's power surges uncontrollably. And while Kuki rushes to his sister, Roku gloats that the world is about to perish. Our boy is just frozen, trying to process the absolute chaos unfolding around him, until Roku blames him for everything, saying his massive magic power is the real problem. It made his world a juicy enough target for a full-scale invasion, a real prime piece of real estate. As the ceiling crumbles, Kuki shields Miki with his own body, while Roku grins maniacally, announcing that the great mage Zero will finally be revived. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Kuki's friends are just standing around in the desolate aftermath, when they suddenly spot Kuki and Miki being yanked into the sky by a strange power, and one of the girls desperately reaches out as they're pulled into a new dimension, dragging the entire group along with them into a swirling, chaotic vortex. They land in a completely shattered world, finding Roku lying defeated among the ruins. A foot comes down hard on the barely conscious villain, pinning him to the ground, and its owner, a long-haired blonde dude, looks thoroughly unimpressed to have been woken up. This newly revived mage, Zero, immediately senses a strange new feeling in the air. Looking at his own hand, he realizes someone else here possesses the same power of creation. He stands tall, basking in his own energy, intrigued by this other user. Purple and white motes of light fill the air as his immense power settles. Zero then turns his attention to the creatures he calls his own, the monsters, and an entire legion of them appears at his command, apparently thrilled he's back. He looks down at Roku, calling the monsters beautiful for their unchanging primal nature. They just devour magic and follow their instincts, which he considers pure life. Compared to that purity, he seems glad to be awake to deal with the alternative, which in his opinion are humans, as Roku's face begins to grotesquely contort. With a simple clench of his fist, Zero unleashes his power on the helpless villain, calling humans Yugli as Roku is completely obliterated in a violent splash. This scene then cuts abruptly to the front door of a quiet, peaceful suburban house. This scene cuts to a flashback with Kuki and Miki standing at the front door before their mom. He announces their arrival and Miki finally gets to call someone mom for the first time. Without a second of hesitation, their mom pulls Miki into a deeply emotional hug, and Kuki, still a little beat up from the fight, smiles as his sister cries tears of pure joy. Back in the present, Miki thanks him for going through so much just to bring her back home. Our boy just brushes it off, saying all that matters is that his big sister is finally safe. She admits she's impressed, but also a little shocked he was capable of pulling all that off, much to his annoyance. But Kuki's mood darkens, reminding her that the problem is far from over. The world is still ending. Roku's final words echo in his mind, a grim warning that the gears of destruction are already turning, a promise of total annihilation that hangs heavy in the air. And Roku had made it perfectly clear whose fault it was, pinning it all on Kuki's immense power. Turns out their world was just too juicy of a target, a planet overflowing with magic ripe for invasion. This weight of that accusation hits him hard, the realization that his own existence put everyone in danger. Miki watches him, sensing the guilt that's suddenly consuming him. So she reveals her own secret. She erased her skill's presence to hide from Roku and the others. But now, thanks to him, the crest on her hand is glowing again, her power fully restored. He recognizes it as ancient magic, but she reassures him her past with Mobius means she can handle the recoil. He asks what it does, and she explains that ancient magic typically messes with the big stuff, time, space, and life itself. She then gets up to give him a little demonstration of her particular specialty. Approaching a wilting flower, she reaches out to show him exactly what the power of life can do. Miki's power flares to life, manifesting as a series of glowing purple clockwork gears. And with a single touch, she rewinds the flower's time, bringing it back to a perfect bloom. Kuki is floored as she explains it only works on plants and monsters, not people. But with the apocalypse looming, she's confident this power will finally let her fight back. A resolve that clearly moves Kuki, who's finally seeing her as a true partner. He takes her hand, a silent promise to face whatever's coming together, telling her straight up that she's not alone in this fight anymore, and Miki agrees, declaring they'll protect their world as a team. Her words seem to snap him out of his guilt, giving him a new sense of purpose, and he finally cracks a genuine smile, agreeing to her plan. And just like that, Kuki gets a brand new idea on how to turn the tables. This scene cuts to him in a suit, addressing a massive assembly of mages. This crowd is already whispering, skeptical of the rookie who supposedly took down 2 saviors. But he introduces himself as the prophesied great archmage, ready to drop a bombshell, and that bombshell is simple. The end of the world is officially on its way. He didn't just gather them to deliver bad news, he's here to make a declaration, announcing the formation of a brand new team of 7 saviors. First up is Igawe Himeka, a woman who looks like she was born for this kind of drama, followed by Kanai Momo, who apparently brings her own very unimpressed sidekick. That sidekick's name is Kyoki Ranbu, and he looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. Next up is Suzaki Irori, who seems to be mid-snack during her grand reveal, followed by his own sister Miki, looking more than ready for a fight, and the ever-serious Sagai Tetsu, who looks like he's judging everyone's life choices. This full lineup of heroes is presented, a real who's who of world savers, with Kuki himself taking the final spot, promising this new team will save the world. This crowd absolutely eats it up, cheering that their worries are finally over, until one guy shouts that just the 7 of them isn't nearly enough, because a handful of heroes can't possibly protect the entire planet on their own. This sentiment spreads like wildfire, with everyone agreeing they have to fight together, while citizens watching on city screens feel completely powerless and useless. But Kuki's speech cuts through the despair, telling them to stop thinking that way, delivering a classic hero line that everyone in the world is the real savior. Even the dramatic pink-haired savior seems a little impressed by his performance. And just like that, the crowd is fired up, remembering they have powers too. Kuki smiles, his plan working perfectly, uniting everyone is their only shot. But at that exact moment, a sinister presence fills the hall as a clock shatters, and someone screams that portals are opening in the sky, unleashing a flood of monsters. Outside, a full-scale invasion begins, with S-rank beasts pouring into the city. Kuki is stunned, realizing the enemy has arrived way too soon, but Sage Tetsu just summons a massive energy blade, ready to erase every last one. These monsters are already roaring, ready for a citywide buffet. But Kuki snaps back to reality, agreeing with Sage that their mission hasn't changed. He declares that this time he and his new team will stop the invasion for good, activating a wide-range buff skill, Light of Salvation, to power up everyone. This other saviors are shocked as Kuki's immense magic power starts flowing into them, and even regular citizens on the street start glowing, noticing the sky has gone dark and snowy. Sagai, however, is too proud for a handout, summoning his own massive ice blade instead. With a single swing, he flash freezes an entire wave of monsters in their tracks, calling it Absolute Zero, a fittingly dramatic name for turning beasts into ice sculptures. Kuki tells him to quit showboating, ordering everyone to split up and defend other areas. This rest of the saviors get the message, leaping off to their assigned battle zones, while civilians are running for their lives as giant beasts tear through the city. Luckily, one of the mages from the assembly throws up a protective barrier, and Kyoki Ranbu, the unimpressed sidekick, tells his partner she's clear to go wild now. So his partner Kanai Momo prepares to unleash a devastatingly wide area attack. She activates her skill, Arsenal, summoning a storm of golden swords from thin air. and her 10,000 rain absolutely shreds the monsters below in a shower of light. Standing over the carnage, she boasts this is the power of a true savior, the shield. But just as everyone feels Koki's power surge, an even bigger, nastier skeletal beast appears, and the newly empowered citizens start to panic, wondering if they can actually fight something so terrifying. One of the mages from the assembly tells the terrified citizens to get it together, before unleashing a massive pillar of red flame to show them how it's done. Fueled by Koki's buff, the crowd's eyes start glowing as they realize they can actually fight, and with a unified battle cry, they charge headfirst into the monster horde. This pink-haired savior, Himeka, watches the newly minted army go to work for a moment before swooping down to check on an injured woman in the street. She whips out a heal ball, instantly mending the woman's wounds in a flash of pink light, and then tells her to bring any other injured mages her way. She's on medic duty. Elsewhere, Miki faces down a pack of monsters, remembering how she once supported this invasion. But now she's unleashing her time-based ancient magic to stop it cold. She's done just listening to people scream. This time, she's going to be the one protecting them, trapping a beast in a clockwork gear as she notes how strange this all feels, reflecting on the very nature of time itself as she dismantles her enemies. From above, Koki watches the whole city light up as his friends and the citizens push back the horde, and he can't help but crack a smile, seeing his plan actually working for once. He's genuinely impressed that everyone is holding their own against the invasion. But then he spots a couple of familiar faces in the chaos, his old classmates. It's Akuda and his buddy, also glowing with power and running into the fight. This sends him into a quick flashback of one of them, Iwashita, back in school, and the other Kusano, who was apparently right there with him. This flashback reveals his classmates are bowing an apology for how they treated him, admitting they were ashamed after seeing how strong he'd become, realizing he gave them this power. Back in the present, those same two are now facing down a seriously ugly mechanical beast, and they're ready to use Koki's gift to fight back as a team. Kusano unleashes his gravity manipulation, slamming the monster into the ground, while his partner Iwashita, a thorn user, finishes the job with a brutal impalement. Kuki watches his old classmates' teamwork, a flicker of hope igniting that they might actually win this, which is, of course, the perfect cue for a much darker, more ominous portal to tear open the sky. He immediately feels a suffocating presence that makes the entire invasion so far feel like a joke. From the darkness descends a new figure, flanked by his own personal demonic entourage. This new guy looks cosmically bored with the whole end-of-the-world business, and he looks right at Kuki, confirming he's found the human he was searching for. He reveals he's also a human, one who possesses a power similar to Kuxi's, and Kuki is floored, recognizing the impossible symbol on his hand as a white crest. This crest glows with an overwhelming energy, confirming this is a whole new level of threat. Suddenly, every monster in the city stops fighting and begins glowing with a strange purple aura. Kuki demands to know what this new enemy just did to the entire horde, and the blonde guy casually explains he's just enhancing their magic and physical strength, while also amplifying their killing instinct with his power of creation. He calls it the primordial magic that gives form to wishes, and he's just wished for an army of raid bosses. This new villain smugly explains that with his power of creation, absolutely nothing is impossible, and Kuki's blood runs cold as he connects the dots. This is primordial magic, meaning Zero has been resurrected. Zero just stares back, looking cosmically unimpressed with Kuki's little revelation, and then complains about his unpleasant awakening, finding the world far too noisy for his liking. In his eyes, humanity is just a writhing mass of ugly faces, completely stained with greed. A judgment that leaves the newly empowered mages below completely stunned. Kuki flies up to confront him, demanding to know why his big wish is to end the world. So Zero launches into a classic villain rant, claiming humanity is worthless while monsters are pure, natural survivors. He then has the nerve to ask if this natural order isn't beautiful, earning a death glare from Kuki. Turns out he's an equal opportunity nihilist, declaring no human is worth saving, not even himself. Kuki powers up, completely rejecting that logic and telling Zero he doesn't get to decide humanity's worth, before unleashing a massive blast of pure white light straight at the villain. His attack connects in a massive explosion of holy energy, seemingly obliterating its target. But his triumphant moment lasts about 2 seconds before he realizes something is very, very wrong. Because through the smoke, Zero casually steps forward, not a single scratch on him. He looks down on Kuki with utter contempt, asking if that little light show was all he had. Zero spells it out. If Kuki dies, the light of salvation dies with him, plunging everyone back into despair. And with that threat hanging in the air, he starts gathering his own sinister purple energy, which surges through that skeletal beast, making it roar as it gets a terrifying upgrade. Kuki can only watch in horror, realizing he's just been completely and utterly outclassed. Kuki hits the pavement, desperately dodging the casual energy blast Zero rains down from above. This villain asks if he's afraid, and Kuki's mind races. If he loses now, everything is over. He's hit with a vision of the future he's trying to stop, a world ruled by skeletal monsters. He sees his allies and friends dead, a brutal reminder of the price of his failure. Even the strongest saviors are shown defeated, leaving him as the world's only hope. He realizes his entire regression, all his suffering, would be completely pointless if he falls here. This weight of every life lost in the original timeline comes crashing down on him at once. Snapping back to the present, Kuki steals his resolve, but Zero just calls him foolish for even trying. Our boy retorts that the world hasn't ended yet, activating a glowing ring on his hand, unleashing a bind skill that sends ethereal chains shooting straight toward the villain. This chains wrap around Zero, seemingly trapping him in mid-air for a solid counterattack. Kuki pours all his energy into the spell, determined to hold the god-tier threat down, and for a split second it actually looks like he's managed to restrain him. Of course, Zero just combines gravity manipulation with fireballs to summon a literal meteor storm. He even duplicates himself just to call Kuki's efforts worthless from 2 different angles. Kuki is completely floored, wondering how he could cast a spell that massive so instantly. He's forced to pop Future Prediction and an Absolute Barrier just to survive the incoming apocalypse. Our hero is stunned that Zero can pull off world-ending magic without even chanting a single word. Zero looks down, completely unimpressed, asking if this is the best humanity can possibly do. Then comes the final gut punch. Zero reveals that every skill the heroes use, he's the one who created them. Kuki is completely stunned, barely able to process what he just heard. Zero admits that Kuki's pure white light is the only magic he's never seen before, and he's getting a little impatient waiting for an answer on what exactly it was. He mocks our boy for being overwhelmed, boasting that anything is effortless if he simply wishes for it, and as Kuki feels that immense mana, a terrible thought starts to click into place. Zero decides to teach him a lesson firsthand, declaring his own wish is stronger than anyone's. He then unleashes a blindingly fast beam of pure destructive energy, sending Kuki flying back as he screams in disbelief at the raw power. This attack is a pure white light of his own, but twisted into a terrifying purple version, and Kuki knows instantly there's no way he can dodge it in time. He braces for impact, realizing this is the end of the line but the beam just carves a massive canyon through the city, missing him by inches. Kuki understands immediately that Zero missed on purpose, a warning shot that could have vaporized him. This villain spells it out. This is the gap between them, and he won't be so merciful next time. He tells Koki, the one who inherited his magic of creation, to give up in despair. This triggers a memory for our hero, something he read in the library ages ago. It was the legend of the progenitor mage, the one who created all magic 150 years back. Kuki yells out that the book said magic was created to make people happy, demanding to know why the progenitor himself would use it to destroy everything. Zero just looks down, offering to tell him a little story from the past to explain it all. Zero kicks off his villain origin story, explaining he was born into this world 150 years ago. And as it turns out, he was the very first human to ever awaken to magic. He saw it as a miracle power, something that could heal and enrich lives if everyone could use it. So with the best of intentions, he decided to start sharing his gift with other humans. This original raw power would later come to be known as ancient magic. There was just one tiny problem. The physical burden was way too much for most people to handle. He quickly learned that not everyone was compatible, so he divided the magic into different elemental types, simplifying and refining it into new forms that were much safer for the average person to wield. He genuinely believed this would make humanity happy, but he was, let's just say, deeply disappointed by the results. He tells Kuki he can probably guess what happened the second magic started to spread. Because instead of building a utopia, people immediately started using it to satisfy their own selfish desires. He watched as his gift was twisted by pure greed, with every new mage just adding to the bloodshed. Completely disillusioned with his own species, he just pieced out and moved to the spirit world. There, he wandered through countless realms, encountering monsters that lived on mana and humans. And unlike people, these creatures lived by pure instinct, a purity he found both dazzling and unforgivable. Kuki's confused, but Zero clarifies he couldn't forgive humanity for being so utterly greedy and corrupt. So he decided to send an army of S-rank monsters to eradicate mankind and purify the world into nothingness. Yep, that's the entire purpose of this invasion, purifying everything by erasing it from existence. He even gathered talented, pure children to found Mobius, all to support his genocidal master plan. And with all the pieces in place, he put himself into a long slumber, turning his back on the ugly world. He'd actually cast a spell to wake up after the purification, but this early resurrection just dropped him back in the mud, and to say he's extremely displeased would be the understatement of the century. Zero declares that since he's the one who started this whole magic-filled story, he gets to write the ending. And no matter what some irregular mage does, if he wishes for something, it's going to happen. Then comes the galaxy brain take. He's ending the world for its own good, calling this invasion its last hope. Kuki can't even process that logic, so Zero reminds him their powers are the same, just with one key difference. When two creation users clash, the one with the stronger, more absolute wish wins, and his greatest, most unyielding wish is the complete and utter extinction of the human race. Kuki feels that mana skyrocket again, realizing with horror that another attack is coming. Zero just looks down, telling him it's time to stake his life on this final fight. Our boy flares his own aura, refusing to let this lunatic get his way. But he's suddenly paralyzed, trapped inside a strange pillar of light that holds him completely still. Zero tells him it's time for a hands-on lesson about whose wish is truly stronger, flexing his white crest as he declares his will is more powerful than anyone's. With that, he unleashes a terrifying beam of purple energy right on top of the immobilized Kuki. This blast slams into the ground with catastrophic force, a direct and undeniable hit. Kuki is completely overwhelmed, coughing up blood as the attack sends him hurtling downwards. He's left broken and bleeding in a crater, utterly defeated by the overwhelming power gap. On the streets below, the other mages look up in shock, realizing Kuki's light has just vanished. Zero stands over his fallen foe, mocking him that his so-called light of salvation didn't get him very far. Just when it looks like it's all over, a girl with angelic wings swoops down from the sky, finally finding Kuki. She holds his battered body, desperately calling his name as he lies on the verge of death, which just seems to annoy Zero, who raises a hand to give his monster army a new order, telling the entire horde to overrun the city and finish off the remaining humans. On the ground, the other mages are immediately swarmed by the newly empowered creatures, and even the strongest among them are getting knocked back by the sudden surge in momentum. This pink-haired girl ignores the chaos, focusing everything she has on trying to save Kuki, and then unleashes a massive burst of healing energy that envelops his entire body. In an instant, Kuki is completely restored, though he's a bit baffled by this woman's abilities. But Zero immediately deduces it's not simple healing, it's a form of time or spatial regression. Now back on his feet, Kuki stands with his ally, and Zero just scoffs at his lifelong ambition. But our boy is now crackling with a strange turquoise energy, asking if Zero's only wish is to be stronger, a magical power that even the progenitor of magic seems to find completely unfamiliar. Kuki lets this new power flow through him, getting ready for a proper rematch. He turns to the girl, thanking Momo for the save, and she gives him a determined smile. This two of them then float up to face the villain, who seems genuinely surprised by this development. With his resolve restored, Kuki tells her it's okay now, because he's taking it from here. A quick flashback reveals they knew each other in school, and she's noticed he's not the same kid anymore. Momo tells him to save the world, and Kuki gives a confident thumbs up, promising he will. And as Zero prepares his next move, Momo appears behind him, trapping him in a bind and asking where he's going. Momo's bind holds Zero in place, asking him just where he thinks he's going now. With a massive burst of turquoise energy, Kuki rockets into the sky like a comet. Zero is genuinely taken aback, realizing our boy's appearance and physical power have leveled up. Kuki calls him out, saying Zero's the one who's truly given up on a world worth saving. This progenitor scoffs at that, doubling down on his belief that humans are just selfish, deceptive filth. So Kuki presses him, is that really a good enough reason to destroy everything? And with zero hesitation, Zero confirms he's going to personally wipe this world clean. He then mocks Kuki, saying a power like his can't save anyone, only provide its own twisted hope. But our boy flips the script. If creation is about wishes, then his wish is to save the world from him. He channels all that new power, declaring his one true desire is to protect everyone. A wish that goes far beyond simple strength or survival. It's to completely shatter Zero's all-consuming despair. With that, he charges forward, fist glowing, ready to deliver a beatdown 150 years in the making. He seems to phase right past the villain, who just stands there looking completely unimpressed. Until he realizes Koki didn't vanish, he just moved faster than the progenitor could even see. For the first time, Zero is floored by the sheer speed and physical force coming at him. This creator of all magic is actually being pressured by someone else's power, and he cannot believe it. Kuki unleashes a barrage of attacks, moving so fast he creates a half-dozen afterimages. This sends Zero into a full-blown rage, absolutely losing it over being pushed back by a mere human. And Kuki lands a clean, solid punch right to the face, leaving the progenitor utterly stunned. As Zero plummets towards the ruined city, he can only wonder why this is happening. Why a mere human's punch could actually send the creator of all magic flying. This force of the blow sends a massive shockwave of turquoise energy down into the streets. And Kuki tells him to take a good look at the world he's so eager to condemn. He challenges Zero's core belief, asking if humanity is truly as selfish as he claims, showing him a vision of people using magic to protect and heal each other instead. Kuki insists that magic was always meant to save people, not destroy them. But Zero just raises a finger, ready to drop a classic villainous counterpoint. He brings up the story of the first mage who learned Fireball, a guy who extorted people for healing, a monster who demanded land, wives, and even lives in exchange for his help. Zero dismisses all the good deeds as a coincidence, claiming that malice is the true constant, and argues that greed is the unchangeable nature of humanity, no matter what Kuki believes. But Kuki just calls him out on it. That's not a philosophy he's just given up. Our boy lays it out plain and simple. Destroying the world is just the easy way out. This finally gets under the progenitor's skin, who calls his logic complete nonsense. A memory surfaces for Kuki, a voice reminding him that fighting to protect things can build a better future. And with that renewed conviction, he begins to gather his turquoise energy into his hand, compressing all that raw power into the shape of a blade. Zero is stunned, realizing Kuki is forging a holy sword from pure magic on the spot, so he creates a massive purple sword of his own, telling the kid not to get cocky. This two creation users go head-to-head, their magic swords colliding in a massive explosion of power, and their battle carves a path of destruction right through the already demolished city. Zero mocks him, asking if he thinks sheer willpower is some kind of cheat code for victory, while another shockwave rips through a skyscraper just for emphasis. And as Kuki gets pushed back, Zero keeps hammering home that a good attitude won't change reality. He launches into a classic villain monologue about how only the strong get to decide the future, because in his book, the weak don't even get a say in their own survival. But then he sees the look in Kuki's eyes, and it actually throws him for a loop. Genuinely baffled as to why this kid still has a single shred of hope left. This progenitor's hand literally starts shaking with rage over Kuki's unbreakable spirit, so he screams at him for daring to believe in victory against someone like him. Kuki then drops a bombshell. He's always loved magic, but until recently he couldn't even use it, revealing he was just some regular guy, happy to finally be useful to someone. Zero scoffs that magic doesn't grant wishes, but Kuki counters that wishes are magic, and with that conviction he swears he's going to save this world and everyone in it. His holy sword slices right through Zero's guard, drawing first blood in this final showdown. sending the progenitor flying back with a nasty gash across his shoulder. He clutches the wound, completely unable to process how this is even possible, calling it ridiculous, muttering about Kuki's absurd idea that people can actually be saved with magic, which finally pushes him over the edge into a full-blown, face-contorting scream of pure rage. Zero drops a spiraling column of pure despair, aiming to end this once and for all. But Kuki meets it head-on, cleaving right through the darkness with his holy sword. This completely shatters the progenitor's composure, who can't believe his attack was just nullified. And Kuki fires back that this world is beautiful, not the ugly thing Zero claims it is. He then declares it's time to show the villain his true ability, leaving Zero completely baffled. Our boy plunges his sword into the ground, channeling every last drop of his newfound power, unleashing his ultimate skill, the light of salvation, in a blinding flash of energy. Suddenly, the battlefield dissolves, trapping them both in a swirling vortex of ancient texts. Revealing this isn't just an attack, it's a whole-ass pocket dimension made of pure knowledge. Kuki stands at the center of a massive, seemingly infinite library he's just created, telling Zero with absolute finality that this is where their fight is going to end. We flash back to a younger Kuki admiring this very same library, which has grown over time, a place that's a manifestation of all the skills and magic he's ever encountered. It apparently started with just 2 simple books, representing his initial humble powers. And a woman with him explains that every book is proof of a battle he fought to protect someone. He asks this woman Bind if it's possible to use every single skill stored here at once, but she tells him it's a nice thought, as the strain would literally tear his body apart. Kuki seems to accept this limitation, though you can see the hint of disappointment, and Bind looks on with concern, sensing the weight of his responsibilities even back then, which implies that back in the present he's about to try and break that very limit. And with that ominous warning, Bind just gives him this knowing, almost sad smile. Back in the library, Kuki tells Zero it's time to see what his real power looks like, slamming his sword down to activate the very skill he was just warned about, trapping them both inside his personal domain, the library of all his copied skills. This entire pocket dimension is literally built from every spell he's ever learned, and Zero, for his part, is completely blindsided by the sudden change in venue. He calls it a cheap trick and summons a massive sword to just brute force his way out, but his attack just fizzles out against some kind of barrier on the ground. This progenitor is officially lost, unable to figure out what's even happening here, and he finally gets a serious look on his face trying to parse this impossible situation. So he summons a massive phantom beast, a fiery tiger, to just tear this place apart, which immediately gets turned into a fine red mist by an invisible force. Turns out Kuki is hitting him with gravity manipulation, just one of many tricks up his sleeve. Then comes a lightning-fast fireball, ionization attacks, and a barrage of thorns. And Zero just stands there calling it all pathetic, a meaningless light show. He's still screaming about how useless it all is when a figure emerges from the shadows, and a hand made of mud suddenly grabs hold of his arm. That's when he realizes he's been fighting a damn mud doll this entire time. Meanwhile, the real Kuki is somewhere else entirely, casually freezing the ground solid, leaving Zero completely dumbfounded that he fell for such a basic decoy. Zero frantically searches for Kuki's real body, finally realizing he's been thoroughly played. But it's way too late for that. Our boy is already right behind him, holy sword glowing. A voice from the shadows gives him a friendly little heads up just before the attack lands. And Zero whirls around in a rage, screaming that he created everything as he parries the blow. Then Kuki unleashes a literal hailstorm of copied weapons, and Zero's foresight is completely useless, leaving the progenitor to realize he's about to get absolutely buried by this onslaught. So he panics, gathering a swirling ball of pure destructive magic for a desperate counter. He blasts it forward, hoping to just erase the entire attack with raw, nihilistic power. This sheer scale of it is just impossible. Chantless multicasting with this much mana shouldn't exist. Zero is just screaming into the void, demanding to know where this kid's power is coming from. Their clash tears another massive hole in the already shattered landscape, a vortex of pure chaos. When the dust settles, Zero is left standing there, completely baffled by this human stamina. He suddenly senses something above him and looks up with genuine alarm, finding Kuki floating there, now surrounded by a storm of what looks like floating books. This progenitor's face hardens, finally grasping the true, absurd nature of this kid's ability. Kuki brings his sword down in a devastating arc, aiming to end this right now. This blow slams Zero straight into the pavement, cracking the very earth beneath him. From the crater, Zero asks if Kuki has really used every single skill in his library, and our boy just calmly confirms that yes, he absolutely has. He then reveals the brilliant loophole. He can't use them all himself, but he can summon them. Zero scoffs at the idea of freedom, insisting that magic is nothing but a tool for domination. Kuki then reveals the skills have their own will, and they're the ones trying to stop him. This progenitor's worldview shatters, as he insists magic can't possibly have a will of its own. But our boy just calmly counters him with a simple truth. Magic is alive. In response, Zero summons his own dark magic, a book crackling with destructive purple energy, screaming for Kuki to shut up as he unleashes a massive blade of pure dark magic. Kuki just effortlessly zips through the ruined city, his summoned skills trailing behind him, leaving the progenitor to lose it completely, screaming about why Kuki just doesn't get it. He pulls the I created you card, reminding Kuki that he's the one who made all this possible. Their swords lock again, turquoise and purple energies grinding against each other in a stalemate. And this time, the clash ends with the sickening sound of a blade finding its mark. Zero is completely stunned as Kuki theorizes his original intention for creating magic was different, telling the progenitor that he finally understands the feelings he entrusted to magic itself, and the hope he once had for the very humanity that received his gift. But Zero just dismisses him, asking what this kid could possibly know about his true intentions. He then goes full monologue, declaring his wish to purify everything and create a new future himself. Kuki just looks at him with pity, telling him it's okay to stop pushing himself. With his hand outstretched, Kuki declares that he's not just saving the world, he's saving Zero too. A single brilliant book opens before him, revealing the name of his ultimate skill, Light of Salvation. He unleashes the white book, summoning a massive phoenix of pure light that towers over the battlefield. Zero stares at the book, completely baffled by a magic he literally can't even identify, and he starts screaming for Kuki to stop, absolutely terrified of what's about to happen. Kuki lays out the stakes. This skill will erase all of Zero's abilities and drain his mana completely. And with that, the progenitor is engulfed in a column of purifying light, his screams echoing out. This light seems to touch everyone he's ever affected, a wave of salvation washing over them all, revealing a vision of a serene man, the original will behind the magic itself. Kuki tells him he's getting a fresh start, not from nothing, but from zero mana. This original will accepts this fate, giving Kuki a final quiet word of encouragement. But using that much power comes at a cost, and Kuki collapses, completely spent. As he falls, the vision of Zero offers some parting, almost friendly advice for the future. He's caught by the woman from his flashbacks, who greets him like it's just another morning. With Kuki safe, she looks over at the now powerless Zero, who seems almost at peace. She then turns to the defeated progenitor, saying she actually has something to thank him for, because without his chaos, she never would have met Kuki or learned to love the world. So with genuine gratitude, she thanks the unconscious creator of all their problems. With Zero's defeat, the source of the monster's overwhelming power is officially cut off. All over the world, the suddenly weakened beasts are getting absolutely steamrolled by humanity's forces. And back on the main battlefield, another user flash freezes a massive monster with ease. He looks over at Kuki and his companion, acknowledging that the main event is finally over. Then he turns to the last remaining boss-level threat, ready to clean up the final mess. With the fight finally over, a familiar voice calls out as Kuki's friend rushes to his side, and the rest of his allies gather, absolutely floored that he actually managed to pull it off. This pink-haired girl leaps into his arms, celebrating that he saved their entire world from annihilation. Which brings us to 1 month later, with mages and volunteers already rebuilding the ruined city. This damage was obviously catastrophic, but humanity is already bouncing back with surprising speed. As for the now powerless Zero, his current whereabouts are a complete mystery to everyone, but his original benevolent will is confident that he'll find his own way now, a new reason to live in the world he once tried so desperately to destroy. Elsewhere, at what looks like the New World headquarters, things are finally getting organized, but the peace is shattered when a woman bursts in announcing a new portal with 2 S ranks. This team is stunned, realizing the end of the world apparently comes with some nasty aftershocks. A calm woman just smiles, asking for orders from the man sitting at the head of the table, and it looks like our boy Kuki has gotten a serious promotion to Archmage. He calmly delegates the new threat to some of his most trusted companions, and the blue-haired swordsman confidently declares he'll wrap this up in 5 seconds flat. Back at HQ, the pink-haired girl is on the phone, handling the day-to-day business of the Saviors, but her expression suddenly freezes as she gets some completely unexpected news. Turns out, people are now starting massive brawls over how to use magic during reconstruction. She immediately volunteers to go handle the dispute, asking for backup from her teammates. And Kuki just adjusts his tie, ready to deal with the next headache of running the world. He heads out to deal with the mess, knowing that changing the world is a slow process. But he sees his friends waiting for him, the very reason he keeps fighting, which gives him the confidence to know that they can actually pull this off. And with that, the 7th Saviors officially move out to tackle the day's problems.